Our story begins with our protagonist Zhuang Wu learning to code and design on his own. He didn't have a team and single-handedly designed a game. Tiredly, he leaned back in his chair, assuring himself that in 2 more months he would be done, and his efforts would undoubtedly bring him fortune. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Ma Chun-Chun. He answered the call, and Ma demanded to know when he intended to pay his rent. He asked her for a few more days, promising that his game would earn him substantial money by then. Ma reminded him that she had been hearing this for 3 years. Only 10 people had bought his previous game, Doomsday, and the sales of Pman were even worse as she was the only buyer. He replied, somewhat sadly, that it was simply because they lacked good taste. Ma retorted that he was the one with poor taste and warned him that if he didn't pay by tomorrow, he should prepare to be evicted. Checking his balance, he found he only had 558 renminbi. The sight was frustrating, but he figured if he was thick-skinned enough, Ma wouldn't be able to do much. Resolute, he began typing again, planning to speed up his work and finish the game quickly. Suddenly, his computer shut down and a surge of numbers appeared on the screen. Messages about designing the monster's image, finalizing plots, adding more codes, and fixing bugs popped up, surprising him, confused by what was happening and why his design seemed alive. He received a warning that the system was overloaded. Then, his computer case crashed down, smoke billowing out. He thought with despair that his life was over, but he noticed a strange light still glowing on his computer screen. The screen displayed an interface announcing the release of a new fantasy world. Releasing platform is on Earth. The progress bar started at 15, jumped to 30, and soon it reached 100. Upon completion, bright lights emanated from his computer. He tilted his head to avoid the blinding beam, and his surroundings started to shake uncontrollably. Realizing it was an earthquake, he rushed to the door, flung it open, and dashed out of the building. Once outside, he was stunned to see trees erupting from the ground, crawling up the buildings. He wondered if he was dreaming because the trees looked strangely familiar. The crowd around him was panicking, trying to make sense of what was happening. Someone pointed to the sky, exclaiming about an unidentified flying monster colliding with a helicopter. The collision caused the helicopter to explode, and both it and the monster plummeted to the ground. As people shouted and fled from the falling debris, a little girl was pushed over and fell to the ground. As she opened her eyes, she saw the monster hissing at her. He was stunned to see it, because it was the monster he had designed. Its name was a hippogriff with an eagle's upper body, a horse's hindquarters, and feathers as hard as steel. Its danger level was sea level, and its special ability was the ripple scream. The hippogriff stood up and screamed angrily at the people. He ran toward it, knowing it was a bad situation. The hippogriff opened its mouth while looking at a little girl. She closed her eyes in fear. Fortunately, our protagonist grabbed her in time and dragged her away while the hippogriff started to use its ripple scream. He covered the little girl's ears, knowing that he needed to, but he felt pain when he heard the scream. Suddenly, the ground shook uncontrollably. The hippogriff stopped when it heard something running towards it. When the hippogriff looked back, it saw red shining eyes coming at it. It was another furious monster. Then, it stabbed the hippogriff before it could even react. He saw this and realized that it was the monster named Unicorn Wolf. It was the overlord of the prairie, its horn sharp and strong. Also, its danger level was B level and its ability was lightning strike. He slowly closed his eyes, guessing that he wouldn't have to pay the rent anymore, then collapsed. Later, he opened his eyes when he heard a beeping sound and was surprised to see that he was in a hospital. He sat up and saw the little girl he had saved. He wondered if all those things he had just seen were real. He grabbed the remote near his bed and turned on the TV. In front of him Li Xiaoming, the reporter, announced that currently, the height of the trees was over 5,000 meters and that they were just at the tree's waist when something flew towards them. It attacked the reporter, causing the camera to turn off in the next news segment. The reporter informed everyone that professionals had already dived down 1,000 meters into the giant hole, and that they should see what they had discovered. The camera spotted the red glaring eyes and it attacked the cameraman, causing the camera to turn off once again on the next channel. The reporter told everyone that it was an emergency announcement in response to the crisis of humans. They begged the players to report their identities at the players' lobby. He wondered why they needed players, then remembered the hippogriff, unicorn wolf, sky tree, and abyssal pit. It made him wonder why they looked exactly like the settings in the new fantasy world he was creating. Suddenly, An interface popped up in front of him. It showed our protagonist's name, Zhuang Wu, that he was at level 1 and his profession was game designer in PC. Currently, he didn't have a title. His HP was 100, MP was 0, strength was 9, agility was 11, intelligence was 12, perception was 9, undistributed was 0, and a note stated that the average human had 10 attribute points. Wu wondered if the game he designed had invaded the Earth. He clicked his inventory, but the interface showed a note that NPCs like him were unable to use the storage panel and skill panel. He tried to click the other buttons, but the interface showed a note that he was unable to use the change profession system. He was sad because he thought he was a peasant and as a game designer he didn't have an identity. Suddenly, someone opened the door and he immediately lay back in bed when he saw a girl. His landlord, named Ma Chun Chun, told him to stop pretending and reminded him that the TV was still playing. He awkwardly asked Ma why she was there, but Ma asked him back if he thought she wanted to come and explained that the hospital had informed her to come. Wu told Ma that he knew she treated him the best, but Ma told him that it was just because if he died, no one would pay her rent. The little girl woke up and looked at him, trying to recognize him. Then, the little girl hugged him happily, calling him dad and told him that he was finally awake. Ma angrily asked him if he already had a child, but he shouted at Ma to let him explain later. After explaining everything, Ma understood and told him that the little girl might have lost her memory, so she would help the little girl register her lost child status. Before the little girl's parents could pick her up, he would have to take care of her. He seized the opportunity and asked Ma if she could lower the rental fee. Ma replied, sure, and angrily grabbed the receipt. She then told him to pay her the medical fee first, which totaled 8,000 renminbi. This left him stunned and shocked because of the price. After the disaster occurred, humans resorted to using nuclear bombs against the Sky Tree and the Abyssal Pit. However, they failed to triumph. Instead, they lost control of the sky and relinquished half of their territory. Now, the fate of mankind rests in the hands of the players. Half a year later, in Zhuang Wu's house, Wu observed a little girl trying to lift a shield, offering it to him joyfully while calling him dad. He patted Meng Meng's hair, reassuring her that she was a good girl. Meng Meng was a temporary name that Wu had given her. He had attempted to use this name online to locate Meng's parents. Although he received responses, they were from individuals wanting to adopt Meng or someone pretending to be an uncle, claiming that Meng's parents had perished in an accident. He resolutely asked the man for Meng's real name, but the man retorted, asking him if the little girl's name wasn't Meng Meng. He further claimed that thanks to Zhuang's report, their city had apprehended a large group of child kidnappers. 6 months had passed and Meng's memory was still fragmented, with her parents yet to come and collect her. Fortunately, Meng was a well-behaved child who often helped with chores, though she often ended up accidentally breaking things. This infuriated Ma, resulting in Wu being charged for repair fees, 1,000 renminbi for the television and 3,000 renminbi for house repairs. Wu had once considered sending Meng to an orphanage, but when she tearfully called him dad, he was moved to comfort her, telling her that they should go home. The new fantasy world comprised 2 main monster areas, the underground and the wilderness. The underground monsters were notably formidable, while the wilderness monsters were marginally weaker. Wu arrived at a prairie near a city. He placed his shovel on the ground and began to dig, not stopping until he had reached the hidden monster. The creature lunged into the air to attack him, but Wu defended himself with his shield. He then gripped his shovel tightly and struck the monster, breaking the creature's horn. In the process, a notification popped up, announcing that he had killed a jackalope. However, as an NPC, he was unable to gain experience points after completing the jackalope hunt mission. A notification appeared indicating he had slain over 10,000 horned jackalopes, earning him the title Bunny Slayer. Exhausted, he lay on the ground, relieved that his task was finally over. Being a game designer, Wu not only created plots for players, but also devised many for NPCs. Originally, the Bunny Slayer title was specifically intended for an NPC. According to the plot, an ordinary NPC, after slaying more than 10,000 jackalopes, would trigger a hidden plot and emerge as the hero of the new fantasy world. Alongside the players, they would embark on a crusade to slay the Demon King. Half a year ago, after Zhuang Wu discovered the NPC on the prairie, he endeavored to hinder him from hunting jackalopes. Regardless, the NPC continued to slaughter the creatures. Wu mocked the NPC, warning him not to blame him for the consequences of his own actions. Wu dug traps in the prairie to ensnare the NPC, used jackalopes as bait to tire him, and even lured a fong boar to the prairie. The creature attacked the NPC and flung him away. As a result, the NPC ceased to appear on the prairie. Consequently, the world's hero was on the brink of replacement later. In the city players' lobby, many players of varying levels gathered. Wu barged in, holding a dead bunny, which stunned the crowd as he walked through the lobby. The people discussed his title, Jackalope Slayer, and criticized his cowardice for merely hunting the lowest-level monsters instead of venturing into the underground dungeons. Wu was irked. Not being a player but a game designer, he stopped at Lao Zhang's spicy rabbit head shop. Lao Zhang, the owner, was known for his special dish, spicy rabbit head. This item, once consumed, would increase a player's movement speed by 5 for 5 minutes. He informed Lao that he had acquired the jackalope he sought. However, Lao, whose business had been struggling lately, offered him some rabbit heads instead. Wu accepted the plate of rabbit heads with gratitude, oblivious to a girl observing him. The NPC, Lai Cho, revealed herself and he was surprised to see her. He was elated that a key character had finally appeared. Being the game's designer, he was aware that Lai Cho was not an ordinary NPC but one of the few gods in the game. According to the plot, after killing 10,000 jackalopes, Cho should consider him as determined and strong-willed, thereby blessing him to become a hero. He addressed Cho as a goddess and implored her to bestow her blessing quickly. However, she questioned why he had killed the rabbits, which she found adorable, leaving him confused about the apparent plot deviation. Cho, fuming, labeled him the Bunny Slayer. She grabbed his hand, scolded him for the mass killing of the cute creatures, and then proceeded to violently throw him to the ground as she vented her anger by kicking him. Even Lao, the owner of the spicy rabbit head shop, was too frightened to intervene. Another player noticed the commotion and recognized Cho. They wondered whether Wu had provoked her or harassed her inappropriately. Wu, being assaulted, was perplexed, wondered shouldn't he have become the hero. Had the game altered itself during this time? Suddenly, a notification popped up. It revealed that, due to his massacre of jackalopes, he was cursed by the goddess Lai Cho. As a result of the curse, he was now ostracized by the world, stripped of his human identity, and transformed into a demon. The interface opened his character panel, showing his new race as demon. His current HP was 35 out of 200, MP was 100 out of 100, Strength was 13, Agility was 15, Stamina was 14, Intelligence was 12, Accuracy was 13, and he had 0 undistributed points. Wu was astounded but not entirely displeased. As the initial attributes for a demon were higher than those of a hero, he thought the ordeal might have been worth it. With tears in his eyes, Wu professed his love to Cho, but she dismissed him as freaking trash. He looked up and spotted something he was not supposed to say, prompting to kick him hard, reducing his health to 30. Later, after recomposing himself, Wu realized that becoming a player unlocked previously inaccessible functions. He was pleased as it provided more convenience and spared him the burden of carrying many items during hunts. He opened the skill list and saw Demon Imitation at level 1. This skill frightened weaker demons into immobility. It had a cooldown of 60 minutes and required 20 MP. The other skill, Demon Transformation at level 1, enabled him to assume a demon form, significantly boosting all attribute points. Its duration was 30 seconds, the cooldown was 24 hours, and it required 80 MP. His new race had talents that provided extremely high agility and defense, specialized in dual-wielding weapons, and had excellent night vision. A notification revealed that demons could not change professions at the player lobby. Upon reaching level 10, he would receive a profession-changing mission. Furthermore, the system would announce his new race to the world. It asked him if he wished to hide his name. Wu clicked yes, and a notification immediately congratulated the city unknown player for being cursed by the goddess and obtaining a rare race identity, thereby unlocking a hidden plot. Other players also saw this and couldn't believe it. They, too, desired to be cursed by a goddess and planned to congratulate the anonymous player, unaware that Wu was the player in question and was nearby. Some even wanted to supplicate themselves to the goddess, which amused Wu. Meanwhile, in the Player Management Association's building, the person seated in the chair, President Lei Chiu of the City Management Association also received the notification about the new race. He asked his secretary if anything major had occurred in their city recently. The secretary responded that their city's Thunder Dragon Guild had recently cleared a brank underground dungeon. Lei Bingyun, the secretary, assured Lei that her reliable sources confirmed the guild hadn't interacted with any goddess, and the Cloudsword Guild and Blue Goat Guild hadn't recently attacked any dungeons. Lei inquired about any unusual events in the player lobby, and Bingyun mentioned a player known for hunting jackalopes had angered an NPC and suffered a severe beating. When Lei asked if it involved a kid named Zhuang Wu, Bingyun was surprised, asking if Lei was also keeping an eye on Wu. Lei explained that he happened to know Wu's father, then directed Bingyun to locate Wu when she had time. As Wu was known to be scared of dungeons, Lei suggested that she recruit him into their backup team. Bingyun affirmed that she understood. Later, in the prairie, he held 2 shovels while eyeing a jackalope burrowed in the ground. Suddenly, it sprang from its hole and charged at him. As it neared, he skillfully swung his shovel down, thumping it onto the ground. A notification popped up, indicating head slain the jackalope, awarding him 10 experience points. Now at level 1 with 10 out of 100 experience, he felt a wave of satisfaction at finally gaining experience in past encounters with jackalope hordes. His only choice had been to flee. This time, however, he was eager to face them hidden after his transformation into a demon. All his attributes had improved, making the jackalope's movements seem painfully slow. When one of the jackalopes attacked, he easily blocked it, smugly informing it that its efforts were too slow. He could anticipate its every move. He seized its ears, grinning ominously as it collapsed. The subsequent notification revealed that head leveled up to level 2. Gazing at the defeated jackalope, he recalled his racial abilities. Without hesitation, he activated his demon intimidation skill. Shocking the jackalopes and making them faint from fear, he vanquished the prone jackalopes and added them to his inventory, simultaneously leveling up. Days passed as Wu hunted jackalopes, his level eventually reaching 6. However, as his level increased, the experience offered by these low-level monsters decreased. He concluded that hunting jackalopes had become pointless for gaining experience, and decided it was time to hunt higher-level monsters. Although the original game design gave players only 1 undistributed attribute point per level. In this world, warriors typically boosted their strength, assassins honed their accuracy, and magicians elevated their intelligence. Wu pondered which attribute to enhance as he looked up. A gigantic creature in the distance caught his eye, shocking him. It was the Jackalope King, a level 10 prairie wild boss with a horn as hard as steel. Known as a level creature, its special ability was Bouncing Crash. Staring at it as it consumed a boar, Wu felt a jolt of fear. The Jackalope King was the first boss he designed for new players in this fantasy world. With its high HP, resilient skin, and terrifying speed, it was a nightmare for novices. The only realistic strategy for rookies and low-level players was to use a bow to attack it from a distance. Regrettably, all he had was a shovel, leaving him regretting his initial design. Deciding on agility, Wu added his 6 undistributed points, raising it to 21. As a demon player, he was physically superior to an average novice. For the pride of a demon, he resolved to challenge the Jackalope King. However, he quickly retreated, jesting that he was kidding, and derided the jackalopes as a bunch of stupid rabbits. Enraged, the Jackalope King bellowed. Wu retorted, questioning whether it truly thought he would fight and reminding it of his numerical disadvantage. The jackalopes emerged from their burrows, chasing after him, led by the Jackalope King. The king prepared to use its Bouncing Crash to impale him with its horn. Wu sidestepped in the nick of time, narrowly avoiding a second attempt as well. He taunted the king, effortlessly evading its subsequent strikes, all while daring it to land a hit, his high agility allowing him to dodge effortlessly. Furious, the king summoned the jackalopes and ordered them to attack. Wu halted upon hearing the noise and turned back to see a horde of jackalopes led by the king hot on his trail, making him panic. In a stuttering voice, he alerted others that the wild boss, the Jackalope King, had appeared and advised them to swiftly. However, instead of fleeing, the other players seemed thrilled at the opportunity to secure rare loot dropped by the king. They assured Wu that they'd join him, but rather than aiding him, they were also pursued by the Jackalope pack. The players cursed Wu, but he merely grinned, excusing himself to prepare a meal for his child. He bid them farewell, leaving them baffled by his impressive speed and swearing vengeance on him for their current predicament. A few hours later, within Ma's building, he opened his apartment door and was welcomed by a cute Meng. She rushed to hug her father excitedly. He asked her what she did at home today, and Meng replied that the landlady had given her a picture book. After Xian Wu adopted Meng Meng, landlady Ma Chun-chun often visited, helping to take care of Meng. Ma also warned him sternly not to behave improperly towards Meng. As they greeted each other cheerfully, their stomachs growled with hunger. He assured Meng that he would prepare dinner. Since becoming a father, he had learned to prepare all sorts of fried rice dishes such as egg and dried radish fried rice, ham fried rice, tomato fried rice, and more. However, when he opened the cabinet, it was bare. He checked the refrigerator and found it was empty too, leading him to realize they had run out of food. Meng saw her father's disheartened look and tugged at Wu's shirt. She cheerfully told him that she wasn't hungry. Observing her, he was reminded that Meng's diet for the past half-year had been nothing but mustard with rice, white sugar with porridge, and a single loaf of bread shared between the two of them. He apologized to Meng with a heavy heart, realizing she hadn't lived a good life since he adopted her. He asked if she wanted to eat fried chicken, to which Meng excitedly replied that she did. However, her excitement faded as she remembered something and told Wu that she didn't want it after all. When Wu asked why, she explained that if they spent too much money, he wouldn't be able to pay the rent. Wu acknowledged that he still owed Ma 3 months' rent, maintenance and medical fees, but reassured Meng that they could afford a lavish feast today. Even though his balance was a mere 121 renminbi, he assured Meng that from that day forward, they would bid farewell to poverty. He then ordered a set of chicken that cost 120 renminbi. He knew that in the post-disaster world, the player had become everyone's and many people admired them. These individuals either had a strong physique or unexplainable healing abilities, but most importantly, they were all wealthy, and as long as they possessed the player identity, they could enter dungeons. He also knew that unlike wild monsters, underground monsters dropped monster crystals. One A-level monster crystal could be exchanged for 500 renminbi, a D-level crystal for 1,000 renminbi, and a C-level monster crystal for 2,000 renminbi. This made him believe that becoming a player could also make him rich soon. Someone knocked on their door to deliver their Silver Arch family meal set. Wu and Meng ate it with fervor, tears streaming down their faces as night fell. He tucked a sleeping Meng into bed, carefully pulling a blanket over her. He heard her mumble happily in her sleep about how lovely the French fries were. Subsequently, he returned to his computer desk and checked the chat forum. He saw news that at 4 p.m. that afternoon, the Jackalope King had appeared in the city's suburbs, causing a rabbit horde. 4 players were attacked by the swarm of rabbits and hospitalized. Fortunately, they were rescued in time and their lives were no longer in danger. He was relieved that the players with him hadn't perished. If they had, he would have been plagued by guilt. The top and trending posts on the forum were all written by him after the disaster. Wu had been doing his best to assist others in this way. To the players, Wu was akin to a god. However, there were occasional accidents, like the incident where 50 people entered the dungeon and only 2 survived. According to one survivor, the team leader had over-relied on the dungeon guide and had failed to adapt. Players asked if the god's guide was truly helpful, but he knew that it was his worst guiding failure ever. This failure had led to the creation of multi-level dungeons and a new boss. He understood that it was all due to the system's updates and additional content in the game. In their harsh world, even if they succeeded 99 times, a single mistake could mean the end for them. After that incident, Wu gradually stopped uploading guides. The following day, he arrived at the prairie on the outskirts of city. Aware of his current financial difficulties, he knew he needed to find a way to generate income. He loudly declared that he could forgo a meal, but he couldn't bear to see Ming do the same. Surveying the boars nearby, he realized he was currently at level 6 and needed to reach level 10 by that morning. Therefore, he resolved to undertake the profession-changing mission, venture into the underground dungeon, and gather monster crystals. He also understood that those Fang boars were extremely aggressive and moved in packs. They didn't drop any crystals, making hunting them a futile endeavor, and this was why few players showed interest in them. However, unbeknownst to others, he had secretly included additional rewards in the game during its creation. Normally, hunting the same monster repeatedly would yield diminishing experience points, but after defeating 100 Fong boars, a player's experience would double. With his trusty shovel, he struck a level 3 Fong boar cub, understanding that reaching level 10 swiftly depended on his current hunt. A notification popped up, informing him that he had successfully killed a Fong boar cub, earning him 10 experience points energized. He continued his hunting spree. He felt a sense of pride looking at the felled boars, but was taken aback when he noticed a group of massive, angry boars behind him. He fled, apologizing to the boars in hot pursuit, but they persisted. A notification indicated that his demon imitation skill had been reset. Halting his flight, he slowly turned around, addressing the boars, indicating that it was now his turn to retaliate, activating his demon imitation skill. He leaped towards the boars, causing them to collapse in fear. He methodically finished them off with his shovel, earning 50 experience points for each boar, helping him reach level 10 with ease and triggering the profession-changing mission upon accessing the game's interface. He was relieved to see that he had finally achieved level 10, although it had taken him half an hour longer than expected. He still had ample time. His demon race profession-changing mission was to clear the Demon Wolf dungeon located on the northern side of the Sky Tree within 60 minutes. The Demon Wolf dungeon was an 11-level underground dungeon, suitable for teams of 5 players who had already changed professions and had levels ranging from 10 to 20 in this new fantasy world. There were 2 types of dungeons, underground dungeons and fixed underground dungeons. Fixed underground dungeons had set locations and physical gates. The monsters within these dungeons could not escape, and once players cleared these dungeons, they would reopen. On the other hand, random underground dungeons were spatial cracks that could randomly appear in the wilderness or the city. If left uncleared for too long, the monsters could exit these dungeons and invade the earth. Moreover, these dungeons would vanish once players had cleared them. He felt the difficulty of the profession-changing mission was hellish and suspected that the system was intentionally targeting him. After humanity had unleashed nuclear weapons on the Sky Tree, it formed a circular defense shield that blocked all technological devices. If a car approached the Sky Tree, it would spontaneously combust. If a battle jet flew into the shield, it would lose its propulsion, and no signals could penetrate the shield. Thus, horse-drawn carriages were the most common mode of transportation around the Sky Tree, offered free of charge by the Management Association for players climbing into a carriage. He admired the picturesque prairie, reflecting that nature could thrive better without human interference. Eventually, they reached their destination, and he was elated to finally arrive at the Demon Wolf dungeon. As was the case in many MMORPG games, some players would halt their level progression to assist other players in exchange for money. These players advertised themselves as a carry team and promised to provide crystals and equipment to those willing to join them. Understanding the need to clear his mission within an hour, he contemplated enlisting some players to aid him. One player informed him they had a slot available and asked if he wished to join. When he inquired about the cost, the player responded that it was 20,000 renminbi per journey, with a promotional offer of 6 rides for the price of 5. The price stunned him and he declined. He then noticed the group he had previously seen. Their levels seemed to have increased, and they were equipped with superior gear. Suddenly, Qinshin, level 19, approached him, causing him to panic and hastily open his inventory. He knew he had to prevent them from recognizing him. Qinshin mentioned that their team consisted of 4 players and needed 1 more. He then asked if he would like to join them. He looked up, donning a mask, which prompted Qinshin to ask why he was wearing it. He explained that he was a miner, a profession dedicated to mining monster crystals within dungeons, and typically did not engage in battles. Qinshin reassured him that his profession was not an issue and he could join them. Qinshin also mentioned that the equipment loot would be divided amongst the 4 original members, but they would distribute the crystals equally with him. Relieved they had not recognized him, he considered that their team's levels and equipment were on par with those of the carry teams. He concluded it was beneficial to ally with them and agreed to Chengxin's proposition. Together, they opened the dungeon gate, greeted by pitch-black darkness. Since the Sky Tree inhibited all technological devices, they relied on torches for illumination instead of flashlights. Holding their torches, they ventured further into the dungeon, and he activates his demon's eyes. They noticed shining crystals embedded in the ground and the walls. Kaizai Ashen, level 18, was eager to collect the monster crystals, But Chen Xin cautioned him against it. A wolf emerged from the dark, its red eyes glaring at them with hostility. It was a level 12 armored demon wolf. Chen Xin warned his team about the armored demon wolves and instructed them to ready themselves for battle while he drew the wolves' attention. One of the wolves lunged to attack them, but they released an arrow and struck it just as Chen Xin was closing in on it. Subsequently, Chen Xin decapitated it. Another wolf pounced on Chen Xin, but luckily Kixinzai unleashed her magic in time, striking the wolf before it could attack Chen Xin. Chen Xin informed his team that both demon wolves have been dispatched and advised them to restore their energy before moving forward. He then addressed Wu, warning him about the dangers ahead and suggesting that he stay behind to mine. Then Chengxin's team proceeded to continue, leaving him thinking that even though Chengxin's group had good equipment, it was impossible for them to clear the demon wolf dungeon within an hour. He started digging with his shovel, knowing that the boss was very close to the entrance, just right underneath him. A minute later, his shovel reached the underground. He descended using a rope, but as soon as he set foot on the ground, he was greeted by a wolf. Looking up, he was stunned to see it. The wolf leapt to attack him. Fortunately, he dodged it, but suffered 10 points of damage from its sharp claws. He looked back and saw that the wolf had crashed on the ground. He opened his inventory, aware that at times like these, he had to use it. Then he showed the wolf the dead jackalope. Surprising it, the wolf's fierceness immediately changed into puppy-like behavior. Upon seeing the jackalope, he threw the bunny to it, knowing that the armored demon wolves living in dungeons had a poor diet and were irresistibly drawn towards jackalopes. He took his chance and continuously stabbed the armored wolf's belly, knowing that its weak point was the stomach. Then a notification popped up, informing him that he had killed an armored demon wolf and obtained 100 experience points. He was glad that he gained a lot of experience and could also get a crystal, so he decided he should level up there. Suddenly, he heard something approaching from behind him. Turning around, he saw a swarm of wolves heading towards him as they were about to attack him. He immediately jumped to the rope, shouting that he forgot the jackalope smell would attract demon wolves. He ascended the rope swiftly, bidding farewell to the wolves. Once he reached the top, he told the wolves they couldn't follow him up there, but the wolves ran away, making him wonder why they left. He peeked at where the wolves had run and saw that they were surrounding Chen Xian's group. He felt genuinely sorry for the 4 of them, but he figured since they could survive the Jackalope King's attack, demon wolves shouldn't pose much of a problem. Zhao Zhong aimed his arrow and released it, stabbing a wolf in the eye. He then asked Chen Xian what was wrong with the underground dungeon and why there were so many armored demon wolves, but before Chen Xian could reply, the wolf that Zhao Zhong had injured pushed him to the ground and bit his arm. Looking closer, he saw that it was in berserk mode, making him wonder why the wolves were behaving this way when they hadn't provoked them. Chen Xian swung his sword at the wolf attacking Zhao Zhong while shouting at his group to focus on their duty and not to be dazed. Chen Xian called Jin Yunkong and ordered him to heal Zhao Zhong first, to which Yunkong immediately obeyed Chen Xian, then approached Qi Jinzai and ordered her to cast explosive fireballs at the wolves. Yunkong wondered if they were cursed. Not long ago, they were hospitalized because of the Jackalope King and had just been discharged. But strange occurrences began to happen again in the 11th dungeon. Jinzai cast a fireball and attacked the wolves with it, but the wolves avoided it in time and leapt towards them to attack. Jinzai told Chen Xian that there were too many demon wolves and suggested that they should retreat. Chen Xian blocked one of the wolf attacks and shouted for his group to retreat and cover Jinzai while she cast fireballs. But before they could retreat, they heard a loud growl, and when they looked up, they saw a huge wolf glaring at them. The other wolves surrounded them, pinning them in the center. Yunkong fearfully told his team they were doomed, and Zhao Zhong asked his team if the huge wolf was the demon wolf leader of the 2nd floor gatekeeper, and why it had come to the 1st floor. On the other hand, Wu was relaxedly digging into the ground. He was happy because the boss room was right below him, but he stopped when he heard a loud growl from the 1st floor. He thought the 4 of them had good equipment and they should be fine, but he decided to take a look because he knew that the mission could wait. But it would be bad if Chen Xian's group died. He remembered that he had almost caused their deaths once he quietly walked towards where the growl was coming from and saw that Chen Xian's group was surrounded by wolves. He planned to help them by luring the demon wolf leader away. Thinking they should be able to deal with the remaining armored demon wolves, suddenly, a bright red light shone from them, making him wonder what it was. Chen Xian revealed a weapon, shimmering brightly, an artifact known as the Fire Lizard's Madness Flame Dagger. This level D artifact imbues the wielder with flames. Its effects boost defense, attack, and recovery rate by 50 and last for 60 minutes, but are only available to players below level 20. Wu recognized this as a rare item dropped by the underground dungeon boss, which would usually disappear after a single use. Zhaozhong informed Chen Xian that they had spent half a year's savings on it. Yang Kong pointed out that if others knew they'd used a level artifact in an A-level dungeon, they'd be mocked mercilessly. Chen Xian, however, retorted that they should wait until they had survived the ordeal to discuss it from a distance. Wu acknowledged that they didn't require his help. He knew that the level artifact could fetch at least 500,000 at the auction house, yet it was reserved for emergencies. Chen Xian's group was the first ever to employ a level artifact in an A-level dungeon. Checking the countdown of his mission, Wu noted there was only half an hour remaining. He needed to move swiftly. A minute later, he had finished digging the last underground passage and descended. Landing in the Demon Wolf dungeon boss room, he assessed his adversaries. The first monster, Doublehead Wolf Thors, was a level 20 Demon Wolf dungeon elite, known for its extreme cruelty. It was an A-level creature with a special ability known as Tier the Second Creature. The boss monster, named Half-Beastman Luca, was a level 25 with 2,000 horsepower. Once a Half-Beastman chieftain, Luca had become corrupted and assumed the role of the Demon Wolf dungeon boss. As a Drank entity, his weapon of choice was a large axe. In an effort to make the exploration of this new fantasy world more exhilarating, Wu had sprinkled checkpoints and Easter eggs throughout the game. One significant Easter egg in the Demon Wolf dungeon allowed players to reach the boss room without engaging in combat. Following the usual route, players would only reach the door of the boss room. However, Wu had dug a hole directly into the boss room to avoid waking the boss. He opened his inventory to find a roasted pig. Combining it with sleeping mushrooms, potent sleeping pills, and alcohol, he fashioned a sure sleeping medicine. Roasted pig. Slowly and deliberately, he approached the slumbering Doublehead Wolf with the doctored meal. He placed it near the wolf and hastily retreated. Awoken by Wu's movement, the wolf was taken aback by the sight of the roasted pig. One of its heads eagerly bit into the meal, causing the other head to grow angry and bite its counterpart. As the two heads bickered, Wu contemplated whether he should have brought 2 roasted pigs. Silently praying that the noisy dispute wouldn't awaken the boss, he anticipated the imminent onset of the sleeping medicine's effects. After a few tense minutes, the Doublehead Wolf collapsed, indicating the sure sleeping medicine roasted pig had taken effect. Wu quietly approached Half-Beastman Luca, knowing that despite its less potent physical power compared to the wolf, it maintained control through its level large axe and tornado dance /skill. The weapon, named Half-Beastman's large axe, had an attack power range of 35 to 50. Its special ability was the tornado dance / with a cooldown period of 30 minutes. This artifact, a treasured heirloom of the Beastman tribe, was meant to be owned by the Beastman chieftain. However, after becoming corrupt, Luca had stolen it and removed it from the tribe's domain. The weapon required a usage level of 25. Incredulous that he had set the requirement at level 25, Wu crept towards the axe, mumbling about wanting to punch himself. However, he froze as the boss stirred awake. Swiftly, he stashed the axe in his inventory. The boss prepares its fists, aiming for Wu, who managed to dodge still. The debris from the impact damaged him by 20 horsepower. Wary of the potent attack, Wu realized that a direct hit could have cost him half his HP. As the boss lunged again, Wu dodged and then sprinted away. Pleading for a break to apply his buffs, he opened his inventory, consumed Lu Jiang's spicy rabbit head to boost his speed by 5 for 5 minutes, then activated his Bunny Slayer title skill, increasing his berserk strength by 10 for 10 minutes. Brandishing 2 shovels, he turned to face the boss, declaring the chase over. As the angry boss approached, a notification popped up, revealing only 14 minutes remained to complete the mission. Recognizing it was time for action, Wu prepared for the offensive. They were facing each other. While the Doublehead Wolf slept peacefully on the side, the creature lunged a fist to attack him, but he blocked it deftly with the head of his shovel. Gripping his shovel tightly, he slashed at the creature. Dealing 15 points of damage, he quickly realized that the damage inflicted had no effect. To defeat the monster, he would need to land 200 hits of the same magnitude. For a team, this task wouldn't be difficult if there was a warrior who could absorb the boss strikes and provoke it. the other members could continuously attack. But at that moment he was alone, and he had no time to provoke the boss. The beast picked up a large stone from the ground and hurled it at him. He couldn't dodge it. The stone was too fast, it hit him, and he suffered 60 points of damage leaning against the wall. He was surprised that the boss had a throwing skill. It seemed that the system had modified the beast. This was not the boss he was familiar with. The creature grabbed the chain of the double-head wolf, making him wonder why it had stopped attacking him suddenly. Half-beastman Lucas slapped the wolf repeatedly, surprising him. He opened the interface, berating the boss for its cowardice. He was fighting it alone, yet it wanted to call its teammate for help. Looking at his remaining points, he knew he couldn't let it wake the double-head wolf. But even if he invested all his remaining points into strength, it wouldn't help much. Still, he needed to survive, so he risked it all, putting his remaining stats into agility. He thought he might currently be the most agile level 10 player. He ran towards the boss, stabbing it with his 2 shovels, dealing 18 and 20 points of damage. The beast growled furiously, attacking him with its sharp claws. He deftly rolled into the air to dodge the attack, extinguishing the torches in the process. Landing, he told the panic-stricken boss that it had been a false attack. His original plan was to extinguish the torches, for in darkness, his demon eyes gave him a significant advantage. Confused and wary, the boss felt the eyes behind it and immediately turned to block his attack from behind. Frustrated that it could still sense his attack, he spun in the air, shouting that the fight wasn't over yet. He slashed and stabbed its neck, dealing 130 points of damage by hitting its weak point. The beast's current HP dropped to 1817 out of 2000. The creature punched back at him, but he disappeared swiftly as it looked around. A shovel was launched at it. He stabbed at its weak point, the kneecap, slowing it down. Seizing the opportunity, he stabbed at its other weak point, the eye, reducing its eyesight. He dealt 120 points of damage. He stepped back as the beast collapsed on the ground, thinking about how effective his stealth attacks were in the dark. He ran towards the creature to continue attacking, but it reached for the chain on the ground, swinging it in a fit of anger. Unfortunately, the chain struck him in the stomach, throwing him harshly to the ground. He took 75 points of damage, leaving him with a meager 100 out of 250 horsepower. Painfully, he opened his inventory. Cursing in anger, he grabbed his medicine. Just as the creature attacked again, he ran, the system warning him that the creature was adapting to the dark. He drank a mid-level healing potion, set to recover 100 horsepower within 10 seconds. Once his recovery was complete, he stopped running and faced the beast, ready to continue the attack. He leaped and struck its head with his shovel, then continuously hit it in the face, shoulder, hand, and chin until its HP dropped to 650 out of 2000. Suddenly, a notification popped up in front of him, stating that the HP of the Demon Wolf Dungeon's boss, Half-Beastman Luca, had fallen to a third and it was entering mode. A few seconds later, it entered Research mode and a notification popped up, warning him that he was being locked on swiftly. It launched its fist in an attempt to punch him. He blocked the blow with his shovel, unable to dodge, but his shovel was shattered, and the fist struck him directly in the stomach. Thrown back, he slammed into the wall hard, suffering 100 points of critical damage. Though badly injured, he understood that one more hit could potentially be fatal. Suddenly, it was on top of him, poised to deliver a killing blow, but he rolled aside in the nick of time. He then stood up and ran, taunting his foe by asserting that he too could enter Research mode. Opening the notification, he saw that he only had 4 minutes and 30 seconds to complete the mission, and his Research skill would be ready in another 12 seconds. Activating his trump card, he selected his Demon Race Transformation skill, as he was gradually enveloped and transformed into a demon form. His stats temporarily increased by 20. The transformation lasted only 29 seconds, but during that time his energy overflowed, and he believed that in his demon form, he might even be able to defeat a level 30 player alone. Beastman Luca, though in a Research state, could still feel fear in its eyes. Wu had become monstrous, huge, and formidable. It picked up stones and hurled them continuously, but Wu merely walked calmly towards it. When a stone was about to hit him, he caught it with one hand and crushed it. He then asked Beastman Luca if it was prepared for the beating that was about to come. Leaping into the air, Wu closed the distance to Beastman Luca, teasingly telling it to taste his serious punch. He then punched it hard in the face and chin. Each punch inflicted damage ranging from 130 to 170. He was aware that his state granted him immense power, but the duration was extremely short, a mere 30 seconds. If he failed to defeat Boss Luca within this time, the tables could turn again, so he couldn't afford to let his foe recover. Meanwhile, on the first floor of the Demon Wolf dungeon, Chun Xin and his group lay exhausted. Zhaozhong expressed relief at their victory, while Xinjai warned that her magic wand was on the brink of breaking. Suddenly, a loud growl surprised them. Zhaozhong panicked, asking about the sound and whether there could be more problems. However, Xinjai surmised it was likely a monster fight happening below them. Chun Xin instructed his team to rest and stay alert. A minute later they proceeded to the boss room, but a notification congratulated them for clearing the Demon Wolf dungeon and eliminating the boss. Half-Beastman Luca, a puzzled Zhaozhong, asked his team how they had cleared the dungeon so effortlessly. On the other hand, in the Demon Wolf dungeon's boss room, Wu leveled up 3 times. The notification congratulated him for completing the Demon Profession Change mission. He was exhausted but relieved it was over. He then opened his inventory to check the boss drops, noticing an item called Weird Necklace of unknown level, effect, and rarity level, but he inferred it was of high quality. He was pleased to see many magic crystals but was surprised to find a perfect quality blue crystal. He knew the ranks of crystals were divided into 3 sections: normal, pure, and perfect. The D-rank normal blue magic crystal had dim light and poor quality, while the D-rank pure blue magic crystal was brighter and of higher quality. The D-rank perfect blue magic crystal was even brighter, similar to a precious gem. Knowing its high value, he envisioned himself and Meng enjoying a lavish meal. Meng happily told him she loved her dad the most, making him really happy. He cited his broken shovels, realizing he needed to find a craftsman to make him a sturdy weapon. He was certain he had become accustomed to using a shovel. Holding the necklace from his inventory, he pondered why he was unable to appraise it and whether the game had added the necklace. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching the room where the double-head wolf was sleeping peacefully. However, it stirred and raised its body, preparing to stand. He knew the game setting well. Once the stone door was pushed open, Thor's, the double-head wolf, would awaken. Frustratingly, even a surefire sleeping potion wouldn't work on Thor's under these conditions. He muttered under his breath, cursing the designer who set up this system, but realized he needed to make a quick escape before the wolf noticed him. Swiftly, he leapt to a hanging rope, his exit strategy, and decided to let Qin Xian's group handle Thor's as he had already eliminated the boss. Seconds later, the group opened the boss room door, puzzled to find the boss already defeated even though they hadn't yet opened the stone door. Xianjai remarked on the mysterious and strange nature of the dungeon, adding to their surprise. Their shock deepened as they discovered the half-beastman, Luca, dead on the ground. Zhaozhong speculated that the double-head wolf could have betrayed and killed the boss. Upon hearing this, the wolf, enraged, attacked them. They exclaimed that the dungeon was not only strange but also insane. Eventually, they managed to eliminate Thor's. The double-head wolf. Zhaozhong admitted to his team that their venture into the dungeon had yielded a negative profit. They had lost an artifact, obtained only a few E-rank magic crystals and some trash items, and didn't even secure a decent weapon. Suddenly, a notification appeared before Chun Xian, indicating that their clear time for the Demon Wolf dungeon was 58 minutes and 2 seconds, breaking the previous record. The system was set to globally announce this news, and it asked them if they wished to conceal their identity. They were momentarily speechless, but Chun Xian chose not to hide their identities. The notification then inquired if they wanted to give their squad a cool name. Chun Xia suggested Flame Lizard Squad. Shortly after, a global announcement congratulated the Flame Lizard Squad, Xinchen Xian, Kai Zhaozhong, Qi Jinzai, Xia Yinkan, and breaking the Demon Wolf dungeon's record with a clear time of 58 minutes and 2 seconds. Each team member received the Wolf Hunter title upon reading the announcement. Other players were impressed even though they knew the squad had used artifacts. They were still astounded by the short 58-minute completion time. Zhaozhong told Chun Xian that their fame could secure them spots in some top guilds. The interface informed them that the Wolf Hunter title, which increased their attack power by 7, was earned by clearing the Demon Wolf dungeon within an hour. They noticed Wu hydrating on the first floor and speculated that he must have scored big in the dungeon. They also spotted a few crystals on the ground. Zhaozhong was annoyed, accusing Wu of digging for so long only to unearth so few. Wu apologized, explaining that all his shovels had broken, but Xiaozhong still berated him. He complained about their rotten luck, dealing with an incompetent digger, and how the small number of magic crystals couldn't even cover the cost of the potions they used. Xiaozhong reminded Wu that they had allowed him to get the title for free, so they claimed all the magic crystals and left him behind. However, Xianzhai turned back. Telling him to wait, she handed him a crystal. As promised, he thanked her, asking her name and if she would be willing to exchange phone numbers. She introduced herself as Qi Xianzhai and gave him her number. Xianzhai advised him to leave the dungeon quickly as it was about to close, which he agreed with. Outside the dungeon, the players were puzzled as to why the squad hadn't exited yet. When the door slowly opened, a cheer erupted from the crowd. They swarmed the squad, extending guild invitations, attempting to buy dungeon-clearing secrets and offering to purchase any valuable items they might have obtained. Preferring solitude to crowded spaces, he slipped away unnoticed, leaving Chanxian's group and the crowd at the dungeon gate behind. He found a quiet spot to stop. Confident that he wouldn't be disturbed, he opened the game interface, aware that he had completed the profession change mission, which meant he could now change professions. He knew that demon warriors were known for their strength and defense, with bodies as hard as stone that few weapons could damage. Demon hunters, on the other hand, had extremely high agility and attack power, capable of converting all agility into attack power, terrifying their enemies. Lastly, demon warlocks were renowned for their powerful souls, expertise in various healing spells, and ability to summon death spirits and skeletons. A powerful demon warlock could single-handedly take on an entire army. Being a Libra, he often struggled with decision-making. He understood that a demon warrior was essentially a tank, a demon hunter was akin to an offensive assassin, and a demon warlock was more of a summoner. He wished he could select all three and wondered if that was possible. The notification informed him that he could only choose one profession unless he obtained a hero certificate, which would allow an additional profession. He suspected that securing a hero certificate would require the goddess' help, but he decided against seeking her out for the time being as he feared her wrath upon seeing him. He opted for the demon hunter, believing it was the most suitable for him, as it allowed him to convert all his agility to attack power when necessary. A bright light enveloped him as the notification confirmed his change of profession to demon hunter, indicating that his attributes had been altered. His current level was 13, with 120 experience points out of 38 needed for the next level. He held the titles of Rabbit Hunter and Wolf Hunter. His health points were 300, mana points 150, and his strength and agility had increased by 28, physique by 14, wisdom by 12, sense by 13, with 3 undistributed attribute points remaining. He also obtained a new skill called Hunt Mark, which allowed the demon hunter to tag a target within the mark's duration. The hunter would be aware of the target's location, deal double damage to the monster, and discern its weak point upon attack. This ability could only mark one target at a time, but upon killing the marked target, the Hunt Mark skill's cooldown would reset. Failure to kill the target would trigger a 24-hour cooldown, and activating the skill required 50 mana points. He was thrilled to acquire the Hunt Mark skill, considering it exceptionally useful for solo duels. Meanwhile, at the Player Association Management Center, Bingyun reported to Liqiu that the Goddess Martial Artist Guild was engaged in large-scale combat at the Skyline Tree's western battleground against Dark Elves. Tragically, 40 players had died, the Goddess Martial Artist went missing, and the clan's co-leader was killed. The Goddess Martial Artist Guild is a unique profession. It is a battle-oriented guild under direct military jurisdiction. They typically abstain from dungeon raids, preferring to fight monsters on the front line. When Liqiu inquired about how widespread the knowledge of this incident was, Bingyun assured him that, to prevent chaos and panic, the information had been contained. Liqiu's concern deepened when Bingyun informed him that the higher-ups wished for them to dispatch other player guilds to the front line to provide support. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Es City, a man was riding in a carriage passing through the Sky Tree Shield. As they crossed the barrier, his phone began to ring incessantly. Retrieving his phone, he noticed he had regained signal and saw a series of angry messages from Ma. She criticized him for his negligence as a guardian and informed him that Meng was ill and needed to be taken to the hospital later. At Es City's central hospital, Ma was peeling an apple beside a sickly Meng, who was resting on the bed. Wu burst through the door, anxiously asking about Meng's condition. Ma, clutching the fruit knife tightly, admonished him to speak quietly as Meng had just fallen asleep. Ma questioned his whereabouts over the past 2 days. Pointing out that he hadn't noticed Meng's high fever, Wu replied that he had been busy trying to earn money. Upon being asked about his success, he excitedly told Ma that he had indeed managed to earn some. He expressed his relief at finally being able to pay the rent, medical fees, water leak repairs, and the cost of the TV that Meng had damaged. Skeptically, Ma pointed out that as his landlord for many years, she had only seen him accrue losses and had never seen him make any money. Wu then produced the perfect blue crystals from his inventory and suggested that she sell them, believing it would suffocate. Ma questioned if he had been to the dungeons, but Wu merely replied that he wanted to be a miner. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A nurse asked which of them was a family member of Meng, as Dr. Zhu had some information to share. Both Wu and Ma responded simultaneously. After a moment of speechless mutual surprise, Wu suggested that he should go. A few minutes later, he found himself in Dr. Zhu's office. The doctor solemnly advised him to brace himself before handing over Meng's diagnosis. Stunned, Wu read the diagnosis, revealing high levels of magic elements in Meng's body, consistent with magic element syndrome. Once, cancer was humanity's greatest health fear. Now, in the new era, magic element syndrome had assumed that role. Ever since the game invaded Earth, the air had been composed not only of nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, but also a new particle known as a magic element. Most people remained unaffected by the magic element, but some bodies absorbed it from the air, causing an accumulation of magic elements that had numerous negative effects. These included continuous high fever, excessive sleepiness, loss of appetite, and even the appearance of black dots. Dr. Zhu informed Wu that current medicine couldn't cure the syndrome. Only protective treatment was possible. However, given Meng's body had 10 times more magic elements than the average patient, he feared even this may not be effective. Devastated, Wu sat on a bench clutching Meng's diagnosis. He understood that it was already a miracle that Meng was alive. However, he knew he couldn't surrender so easily. He decided to raid the burial ground, where there was a chance to find Lasso's tears, an strange item that could cure all illnesses, named after the goddess of light and hope from the mysteries. It was rumored that her tears could cure any ailment. Such a curative item could only be found in the burial ground, a place that represented death. The dungeon had a difficulty level of C, a level restriction of 10 to 30, and only a single party capacity. He understood they couldn't form a team and would have to tackle the dungeon solo. Most players wouldn't be able to clear the dungeon, but he was confident that he wasn't the weakling who could only defeat horned rabbits any longer. He returned to Meng's room, and Ma asked him with concern about the doctor's diagnosis and if Meng was alright. He explained it was just a normal fever, but the doctor said the money for the medical fees wasn't sufficient, and thus he needed to pay more. Outraged, Ma argued that they had already paid 3,000 that morning. She questioned whether they had exhausted their funds in less than a day. Ma reassured him that if money was tight, the rental fee could wait until after Meng had recovered. As Wu broke down in tears, he acknowledged Ma's kindness, yet Ma replied that if it weren't for Meng, she would have evicted him long ago. Shitting him, she tapped him on his back and mentioned that he was covered in dirt. She insisted he should not touch her and go clean up quickly, as she intended to take care of Meng for the night. He realized he was covered in dust and sand from digging holes in the Demon Wolf dungeon, where he had also battled the boss. Consequently, his entire body was battered and dirty. Acknowledging Ma's advice, he said he would take a bath first. However, Ma impatiently told him to leave later. While showering, he realized that after joining the demon race, his body had changed. He had developed a potent urge to destroy things despite only being level 13. His attributes exceeded those of most level 20 players. Using the Hunt Mark skill, he could solo a Drank dungeon without worries. However, he knew soloing a Crank dungeon would be challenging, so he needed to enhance his overall combat ability. After his contemplation, he stepped outside. City's Chainin Street was a bustling business district where players bought and sold weapons. As he strolled down the street, he heard a caged monster wailing. The seller was convincing a lady that the pet they were selling was exceptionally safe. Then he pushed a button while instructing the lady to do the same. The monster got electrocuted and collapsed in its cage, severely injured. The seller assured the lady that in addition to the electric collar, they had removed all of its fangs to prevent it from biting people. Satisfied, the lady agreed to make the purchase. He knew the Earth was no longer what it used to be. Yet humans remained the same. A minute later, he reached the magic crystal exchange store. Looking at the exchange rate of crystals, he noticed a drop. Other players expressed frustration too, but they understood that they had no option as more and more players raided dungeons. He opened his inventory and retrieved several crystals. The employee greeted him and explained that the current price for E-rank magic crystals was 455 and rank was 965. He then asked if he was sure he wanted to proceed with the exchange. Pausing, he told the employee he had another magic crystal. Upon showing it, he inquired about its worth. The employee was surprised to see it and carefully examined it. He was informed it was a rank perfect magic crystal. Suddenly, a man behind him lamented that it was only a rank perfect magic crystal. Good for crafting only a rank weapon. The man added that half a year ago, such a crystal would have been in high demand and worth more, with people clamoring to purchase it. The employee offered 10,000 for the crystal and asked his opinion. He agreed, stating it was not a problem. The employee thanked him for his business and assured him the payment would be transferred right away. After deducting the tax, a total of 133,200 was deposited into his account. Later, he visited Lao Cao's weapons store. He browsed around and noticed a Windfrost longsword priced at 55,000 and a water crystal dagger costing 95,000. He exited the shop, loudly criticizing it for lacking elite equipment. However, the reality was he simply couldn't afford it. While walking down the street, he spotted shining blades lying on the ground. He picked them up, recognizing them as Baldur's cursed swords. With an attack power of 1445, it was a rank weapon with no level restriction. It could inflict additional damage on death spirits and could absorb death souls to enhance the weapon's attack power up to a maximum of 20 stacks. A human wielding the weapon would lose 10 horsepower. The sword was originally the god of light Baldur's, created from a type of parasitic trees branches found around the divine land. After Baldur was betrayed by the gods, his weapon became cursed. Astounded by the three effects of the sword, he asked the seller about the price. The seller quoted 15,000. He argued that the weapon was not suitable for humans and questioned if the price wasn't too high, but the seller countered, stating it was a rank weapon and if he didn't want it, he was free to leave. He then pulled out a large axe from his inventory and asked the seller if he would consider a trade. The seller held the large sword and noted his axe was only rank. However, the seller agreed to the trade, admitting he had been trying to sell the sword for several days. As he walked away, the seller laughed at his perceived victory, thinking he had made a fantastic deal. Wu knew if the seller realized he wasn't human, he might have been shocked into unconsciousness. Still, the seller believed he had made a fortune and considered the axe a good trade. Later, he arrived at the hospital and found Meng and Ma asleep. He gently covered Ma with a blanket and walked to the nurse's station. He requested the nurse to upgrade room 27 to a VIP sick room. Later, the sound of her phone notification roused Ma. She was stunned to see a generous transfer of 245,400 from Zhuang Wu, covering all hospital expenses and 5 months of rent. Wu's accompanying message revealed his settlement of all the debts, alongside a request for Ma to care for Meng during his forthcoming absence. Ma's reply was a mixture of skepticism and indignation, questioning the necessity of a VIP sick room for a mere fever and flu. Deep in the Great Rift Valley, Wu pressed on, aware that despite the looming city skyline framed by trees, he had no choice but to traverse the territory on foot. Wu, a demon of exceptional physical prowess, faced a journey of 30 kilometers. A task such as this was a mere trifle for his enhanced physique. As he studied his map, the name Darren's village caught his eye, a name not unknown to him from his past experience in game design. The elusive burial ground, he recalled, was cleverly hidden deep within the mist fog forest, accessible only when the dungeon was revealed. The key to this mystery was a mission map found in Darren's village, a bustling hub of high-ranking players and a critical resupply point in the western defense sector. Within this busy settlement, a man stood, his voice echoing in the market square, asking if anyone could hear him. His strange condition for sharing missions was to provide him an attractive companion. One man, Xiao Hao, could no longer contain his fury. Drawing his sword, he was quickly restrained by his companions who warned him of the severe consequences of attacking an NPC. Zio was seething with frustration. This drunken trickster had taken him for half a year's savings, offering no equipment in return, only to ask for more. Just then, Wu emerged from the crowd. Spotting the man, he heaved a sigh of relief and moved towards him. Hao, trying to spare Wu the same fate, warned him against the man's trickery. Ignoring the warning, Wu approached the man, who promptly repeated his demand for a beautiful woman's company. In response, Wu, with a smirk, produced a risque /U00E9 magazine from his inventory. The crowd gasped, while the man's eyes whitened with curiosity. Revealing a pile of similar magazines, Wu coolly asked if these would suffice. Took to hide his excitement, the man snatched them up, but warned that obtaining good missions wasn't as simple as that. He demanded a bottle of wine. Without missing a beat, Wu offered him an expensive liquor named Fly to the Sky, his price tag a staggering 5,000. Hao watched in disbelief as the man greedily consumed the costly drink. Satisfied with the taste but not quite appeased, the man had one more demand, a love letter to his neighbor Juliet. Writing back his annoyance, Wu composed an eloquent and heartfelt letter, much to the admiration of Hao. However, upon delivering the letter, Wu was met with a furious butcher, Juliet's husband, who threatened them with violence for their insincere advances towards his wife. Wu was enraged, questioning the absurdity of the mission's design. Despite the turmoil, the drunken man was delighted with Wei Ye's efforts, finally offering him the mission. Wu could only shake his head in disbelief, his mind whirling with thoughts about the insane tasks he had undertaken. In a sudden burst of light, an interface materialized before Wu. It displayed his mission, to recover the mortal remains of the inebriated Kalen's son, Kashanda, a youthful adventurer who'd embarked on a daring journey and never returned. Whispers suggested Kashanda had fallen in the deathly silent expanse known as the burial area, and his grief-stricken father Kalen had turned to Wu in a desperate plea for closure. Kalen had armed Wu for this quest with a map and an intriguing artifact, a bell. The map, old and worn, carried an ominous marking of the burial area, and a place noted as the home of a bloodthirsty demon tree. The bell, known as the undead bell, was a mystical object ranked B, with the ability to fend off undead forces, a creation of the desperate father. The undead bell was a beacon of hope in his wish to bring his son back, even if in death. The bell had an impressive potential of inflicting substantial damage on undead and death spirits, followed by an eerie silence effect that lasted for an excruciating 10 seconds. Curious onlookers and fellow players quickly turned their attention to Wu, their eyes filled with intrigue and hope. They implored him to share the mission. A level 47 archer even suggested combining their strength to accomplish the task. Wu, however, graciously declined their offers, expressing his decision to undertake the mission alone and recommending them to continue their own quests. As he exited, his figure fading from sight, he remained oblivious to the secretive observers perched on high. One of these unseen watchers rallied his companions, his voice an ominous whisper, declaring that once Wu had stepped outside the village boundaries, the mission and the precious equipment would fall into their hands. The tale progressed as Wu embarked on his journey, shadowed by figures clad in mysterious robes. A child, her eyes wide with awe, pointed towards Wu, confiding in her uncle about the historic mission bestowed upon him. The girl then trailed behind Wu, her curiosity piqued, suggesting they continue to observe and decipher the true nature of Wu's task. The air grew tense when one robed figure licked his blade ominously. His eyes locked onto the girl, making her question their ill intent. Chan, the girl's uncle, responded by tightening his grip on her shoulder and quickly explaining her youthful naivety to the threatening figure. Pleading for his understanding despite her protests, Chun reprimanded her, reminding her to respect the space for adult conversations. As one of the robed figures proposed they leave before losing sight of Wu, the group dispersed, leaving Chan to sternly warn his niece to keep her distance from such men in the future. The girl then questioned why Chun, with his superior abilities, behaved so deferentially. He explained the complexities of dealing with metaphorical poisonous snakes and how her limited experience in the Great Rift Valley hadn't exposed her to its treacherous rules yet. He painted the picture of the valley being a hotbed for crime, with its residents falling prey to these villains more often than any beast. When the girl asked why the authorities were inactive against such villains, Chun revealed the grim truth of their underground society surveillance, such as CCTV cameras, was near impossible to install, making monitoring and investigation efforts futile. The unsettling reality was that occasional deaths were a part of their norm, and those navigating the treacherous world of the Great Rift Valley needed to stay ever vigilant. He inquired, and the frightened girl affirmed that anyone who fell under the radar of these venomous serpents was in grave danger. Chun concurred, advising her that the naive or avaricious individuals bold enough to embark on such quests solo typically met a sinister end. He suggested that her best protection would be to align with a powerful guild leader, who reached the ominous threshold of the mist fog forest. Peering over his shoulder, Wu couldn't help but equate his pursuers with the symbolic poisonous snakes, wondering if they were scheming to strike. Stepping into the foreboding woodland, despite the unnerving fog that blanketed the forest, impairing visibility, he pressed onward. An unseen foe knocked an arrow and let it fly towards Wu. With a quick sidestep, Wu barely avoided the missile and took shelter behind a nearby tree, his eyes scanning for the silhouettes of his attackers, of which he spotted 4. One of the men taunted the archer for his missed shot, nudging him to unleash the power of his snake cane. Unfazed, he assured his comrade of turning Wu into nothing more than ash. A blazing serpent emerged from the cane, barreling towards Wu and obliterating the tree he hid behind. Wu barely escaped, puzzled as to how his refuge had been exposed. Amidst his retreat, the archer ridiculed the cane wielder for his own failed attempt, noting the irony in his critique of his archery. While fleeing, Wu's instincts kicked in, signaling imminent danger. Activating his demonic eye, he sighted an enemy above. Poised to pounce, the predator dived, only to be intercepted by Wu's swift swordplay. In the heat of battle, the assailant speculated that Wu must be an assassin, given his adeptness at sensing covert threats. A man named Zhang commanded the group to relentlessly assault Wu and prevent his escape at all costs. The archer then launched a flurry of arrows skywards. Wu disengaged from his adversary, only to sense the impending danger above. Glancing upwards, he spotted the rain of arrows, and with split-second precision, he parried the closest ones. Their tactics became clear to him. Distance attacks to hinder his movements, stealthy traps, and broad destruction. Despite his deftness, a couple of arrows found their mark, depleting his HP by 20 and 23. Respectively. Wu made a hasty retreat, glancing at his map and acknowledging the synchronized assault of his enemies, a telltale sign of their long-standing alliance. Despite the odds, a confident smirk graced his sprint was abruptly stopped by a towering tree barring his way. An enemy gloated at Wu's apparent deadlock. Wu shot back, arguing that their relentless chase forced him to run. The archer, furious, took aim at Wu, promising his impending doom, but Wu, with an air of nonchalance, dodged the arrow, causing it to pierce the tree. To everyone's surprise, the tree shuddered, its roots convulsing. It was the mythical guardian of the Mistfog Forest, a level 42 rank bloodthirsty demon tree with unique skills in puncture and bloodthirst, awakened by the arrow's impact. As the tree's roots began to writhe, the archer's earlier bravado dissolved into sheer panic. In a desperate plea, he implored their leader Zhang to aid him. As the menacing gaze of the enemy leader bore down on him, the archer's calls for help echoed with increasing urgency. One of his comrades questioned their ability to overcome this level 42 adversary. Zhang realized they had stumbled into Wu's carefully crafted trap as the enemy prepared to strike. The archer's pleas to Zhang for salvation intensified. Without missing a beat, the staff-wielding warrior sprung into action, brandishing his snake staff. However, in a cruel twist of fate, he accidentally injured the archer. As the enemy's onslaught began, the archer demanded an explanation for his companion's seemingly traitorous act. They revealed the boss' attention had been inadvertently drawn to him. Therefore, once he was dispatched, the boss' focus would naturally shift to the next nearest combatant. The archer met his end, consumed by the boss, who swiftly took on a skeletal form. Meanwhile, his compatriots coolly explained that this sacrifice was part of their plan to avoid a direct encounter with the boss next. the venomous snake sought escape, under Wu's watchful gaze. Wu had anticipated this display of survival instincts, where the snakes would forsake their own kind to save themselves amid their retreat. Zhang was alerted to an unexpected development. The staff wielder explained that surprisingly, the boss was not targeting the child, but him. The ground ruptured under the relentless pursuit of the boss' deadly roots suddenly. The roots broke through the surface, coiling around the group and launching a surprise attack. The staff wielder, caught in the root's snare, pleaded for Zhang to quickly devise a strategy to save him. In the nick of time, just as the staff wielder braced himself for an attack, the stealthy assassin activated his cloaking ability and announced his departure with a taunt in a shocking turn. The roots pivoted and ensnared the assassin, draining his life force and leaving behind a skeletal husk. The staff wielder, struggling to regain his footing, predicted their dire fate. Zhang observed an interesting pattern. The boss had initially bypassed both Ziyu Wu and the staff wielder, instead targeting the fleeing assassin. Ziyu Zhao. This observation led him to believe the boss attacks were not exclusively aggression-driven. He hypothesized that the boss used wave-like senses to target its victims, indicating that remaining stationary might prevent detection and subsequently attacks. Furthermore, Zhang noticed that Wu, who had been utterly still, was left unscathed. He inferred that Wu must have already figured out the boss attack modus operandi. Ziyu's terrified screams brought Zhang's attention back to the immediate danger. As Ziyu attempted to escape, a hostile root tailed him. Ready to strike, Zhang shouted a warning to Ziyu, advising him to halt movement to avoid an attack. Heeding Zhang's advice, Ziyu froze, and to his relief, the pursuing root also ceased its chase. Zhang then strategized for Ziyu to unleash his flame snake on Wu, who was conveniently positioned at the boss core. In a flurry of fury, Ziyu commanded his snake cane to attack Wu, voicing a fatal curse. Wu, with an uncanny sense of foresight, evaded the attack, seeking refuge behind a tree. Ziyu, in the throes of desperation, turned his fire skyward, fearing collateral damage to the formidable boss. His attack detonated in the air, a firework of impending doom. When founded, he sought insight from Zhang as to why the boss hadn't seized upon Wu's evasive maneuvers. Zhang, however, was just as baffled. Wu, in this short, heart-pounding span, had deciphered the bloodthirsty demon tree's attack pattern. He also respected the venomous snake's sly prowess. Any creature marked as their prey would find escape a fleeting dream. But Wu was resolute. Fear had no foothold in this deadly game of predator and prey. He delved into his armory, procuring his bow and arrow, honing his aim on Ziyu. Ziyu responded with a burst fireball, attempting to quash Wu's arrow assault. But Zhang interjected, warning Ziyu of Wu's calculated bait. Ziyu's fireball inadvertently struck the boss, propelling Ziyu into a whirlpool of shock and panic. The roots of the boss sprung forth, impaling Ziyu unflinching. Wu focused his aim again, this time at Zhang, demonstrating agility, parried the arrow rain with his sword, transitioning into a frenzied berserker mode while ridiculing Wu's audacity. With unwavering resolve, Zhang stormed towards Wu. Pledging to show him the vast divide in their abilities, he posited that the boss might have a blind spot, a reason for Wu's apparent invincibility. He slashed through the roots, taunting Wu that his hideout behind the boss was no sanctuary. Yet Wu held a grudging respect for Zhang. How could anyone be so powerful, he wondered, witnessing Zhang clashing with the boss. Wu knew the abilities of a berserker, the potential to enter berserk mode, a status that for 5 brief minutes boosted all the player's attributes by 50. As Zhang caused the earth to tremble beneath him and lunged at Wu, promising cataclysmic defeat, Wu recognized the bloodthirsty demon tree as a formidable wild boss. More potent than even some crank dungeon bosses. Wu pondered the source of Zhang's unyielding confidence, and it dawned on him. An artifact. Zhang was armed with an artifact of legend, the Flame Dragon's Roar. A level relic, its power was legendary. The Flame Dragon's Roar, unlocked from a crystal sphere, inflicted broad-scale area damage with an explosive intensity. Zhang brandished this fearsome weapon, bellowing threats of Wu's imminent demise. It was clear Zhang's reckless bravado was backed by a lethal artifact. Zhang then unleashed the Flame Dragon's Roar, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The villagers of Darren's village looked on in awe, Recognizing the ominous mushroom cloud billowing from the mist-fog forest, they knew only a crank artifact, worth millions, could unleash such devastation at the fringe of the forest. Chun and a child shielded their faces from the resulting debris. The child, wide-eyed with terror, asked his uncle if the individual at the heart of the explosion could survive. In an urgent attempt to check on Zhang, she was stopped by Chen. He firmly took her hand, steering her to safety, firmly reminding her of the inherent danger. The perilous area ahead held only danger from an imminent blast. Meanwhile, the bloodthirsty demon tree ignited with fierce flames, and Zhang was a fallen figure nearby. Wu, standing at a safe distance, paused for a sip of water. Acknowledging the fate he had narrowly avoided, he had recognized the menacing power of the artifact, far more threatening than the boss itself. Zhang, much like a cunning snake, had chosen to forsake his allies rather than risk using the artifact that could have ended in two. As Wu approached the stricken Zhang, he noted his impressive collection of magic crystals. Suddenly, Zhang's hand whipped out in a swift attack. Wu, ever vigilant, sprang back just in time. A surprised Zhang questioned his detection, only to be met with Wu's playful scorn. Wu explained the signs of a player's demise and how Zhang's scattered items weren't the usual neat arrangement. He accused Zhang of a deceptive plot, throwing out his possessions as a tantalizing trap for Wu, intending to strike while he was mesmerized by the bounty. Zhang appreciated the astute observation with a laugh, even playfully comparing Wu to a venomous snake. But Wu was all too aware of his role as the game designer. When pressed about his survival, Zhang, teetering on the brink of death, saw no harm in revealing his secret. He had two unique artifacts, the Flame Dragon Roar and the Flame Dragon Protection, the latter being an expensive asset meant for combating a goddess martial artist. Yet, in an ironic twist, it had been wasted on Wu. Incredulous as to why the boss had not attacked Wu, Zhang was met with a simple response. They shared the same lineage, both hailing from the demon race. Zhang dismissed this as a jest, mockingly telling Wu to quit his lies. But upon seeing the change in Wu's demeanor, Zhang realized that the truth might be lying with his fallen body. With a knowing smirk, Wu activated his hunt mark, which highlighted Zhang's weak spots. It revealed that Zhang was barely hanging on to life, critically injured from the previous blast. A puzzled Zhang felt like a hunted prey. Questioning the possibility of the young lad being stronger, he dismissed the thought as a farce since Wu was not even at level 20. In response, Wu underwent a transformation, lunging forward in his demon form. Ready to confront Zhang launched in a sudden battle, Zhang was caught off guard by Wu's fervent sword strike. Uncertain of Wu's identity, he implored for an answer. Yet, as he sank to his knees in surrender, he realized the truth. Wu was akin to the divine martial artist, both entities transcending humanity. With a last, resentful glance, he denounced Wu as a demon. A reward notification sprang into view, revealing his victory over a high-level player. It was an impressive feat, granting him 19,000 experience points and propelling him to level 17. Moreover, he had accomplished a hunting mission. His reward was 1 hunt value point, marking his first point out of a possible 100. The substantial experience he gained from this single-player kill left him pondering why he hadn't heard such strategy from others. Was it because of his demonic nature? Alongside this, he observed the hunt mark skill, which intriguingly seemed upgradable. He contemplated whether dark elves could also level up by hunting players. Wu then explored his inventory. The 4 defeated players had left behind a trove of items, among which he discovered a unique sword. The moment he gripped it, it trembled unendingly. Its title was the Vibrator Metal Long Sword, a brank weapon boasting an attack power of 65/75. Crafted from vibrating rock, the sword vibrated vigorously when wielded, thus escalating its destructive potential. However, its use was confined to players of level 35 and above, and he surmised that only those of the Berserker class could maximize its capabilities. Next, he stumbled upon Wu's transformation ring, and a rank item enabling the wearer to use 2 artifacts at once. It was the magnum opus of Wu, a genius artifact researcher of the elves race. The ring, he knew, only appeared in brank or higher dungeons, which only formidable guilds had the strength to conquer. He pondered over how Zhang could have acquired such a valuable item soon, people began to flock towards the site of their explosive battle. The Green Goat Guild's 9th Attack Force Squad was among them. Their leader was notified about a wild boss attack. The discovery of 4-player corpses left them stunned, but seeing Zhang sprawled on the ground elicited a gasp of disbelief. Recognizing the fallen player, he could only utter, "My little brother," words soon spread that the guild leader's sibling, who had been averse to dungeon raids, had become a notorious poison snake. Despite exploiting his elder brother's position and receiving rare equipment, Zhang's defeat to a wild boss was baffling. An urgent report from one of the men relayed the unsettling news. Their entire inventory had been plundered. The leader, piecing together the puzzle, recognized the grisly work of a wild boss and the 3 lifeless bodies before him. Yet something was off. Zhang's chest bore a wound that spoke not of beastly claws, but of a keen weapon's edge. Swiftly, the leader instructed his team to alert the guild and initiate a hunt for any lurking suspects in the vicinity. Amidst this chaos, a new scene unfolded. Wu standing before the entrance of the burial dungeon. This was a single-player challenge, a test of courage and skill ranked at C difficulty. Pushing the ancient gate ajar, Wu ventured into the first floor, ominously known as the Corpse's Corridor. A voice filled with disdain branded him an intruder, threatening him with severe consequences. In response, the skeletal remains lining the corridor stirred to life, coalescing into formidable foes: a level 27 warrior, a level 26 spearman, and a level 28 archer, all crafted from bone. This deviation from Wu's original design was glaring. The first floor should not have housed such potent skeletal adversaries. A chill realization dawned on Wu. Once again the system had meddled with his game data and codes. As the skeletal warrior raised its weapon for the first strike, Wu parried with his blade. The force sent shockwaves through him, cracking the ground beneath and nearly toppling him over. Such power in a mere skeleton was baffling. While Wu grappled with the warrior, the spearman seized the opportunity to strike from the flank. Wu narrowly dodged the attack with a midair leap from afar. The skeleton archer readied an arrow, capitalizing on Wu's vulnerable state. Wu, cognizant of his disadvantage in the constricted corridor, eyed the arrow zipping toward him. With swift reflexes he deflected it, yet the sheer force propelled him backward, crashing into the cold stone wall. He marked the archer's skeleton for termination. Despite the looming challenges, retreat was not an option. He weaved past his bony adversaries to confront the archer first. A swift decapitating strike down the archer's skeleton, with Wu's blade connecting at the weak point and inflicting 360 damage. A bonus effect from his weapon tacked on an additional 430 damage as the skeletal remains crumbled. He bagged 300 XP and bumped up his hunt value by 1. A timely notification shined in, stating his Baldura's Curse Sword had absorbed the skeleton archer's soul, boosting his soul power to 1 out of 20. Each increment in soul power conferred a 1 power bonus and 2 Death Spirit's magic resistance. Understanding that his sword's special effect delivered more punch than a standard weak point strike, Wu found his low level hampered his overall damage output. His immediate goal was to power level and neutralize the spearman's skeleton next. With the ghost of a smile, he sprang toward it, weapon at the ready. In mere moments, he had felled the remaining skeletons. The daunting foes were less intimidating once he discerned their attack patterns. Victory was not a matter of brute strength, but of strategic understanding. Suddenly, the mound of skeletal remains stirred once more. Whirling around instinctively, he detected an eerie change in the atmosphere, only to find skeletal figures hiding in the shadows. It seemed they were intent on resurrecting their fallen brethren, who had launched a surprise assault. Yet within moments, he had them cornered against the wall, the realization dawning that these were no ordinary skeletons. They were conjurers, capable of summoning skeletal soldiers. He seized the opportunity, commanding them to conjure more skeletal warriors to fuel his quest for power. An uncanny smile spread across his face as he taunted them, inquiring if his commands had been heard. With a show of might, he flung a skull into the crowd, racking up considerable experience points. During wave after wave of skeletal foes, he soon reached the milestone of level 20, unlocking an enhancement for his marking skill. His aptitude for detecting vulnerabilities increased by 10, and he could now mark 2 foes simultaneously. Surveying his enhanced status, he mused that his inherent demonic abilities, coupled with his unique status as a demon hunter, made him a formidable match for even a level 30 player. His confidence in taking on Yang in combat was bolstered, however. In an unexpected twist, the skeletal mages chose suicide over submission. The idea of such creatures possessing the capability for self-destruction left him dumbstruck with a sigh. He acknowledged the end of his experience grind and veered towards another gate, primed to conquer the next level. As he shoved open the gate, a scene of bone-strewn chaos awaited him among the remnants. He spotted the remains of Cationo abruptly. Torches sprang to life, illuminating the surroundings and revealing his location. Floor 2, the infamous Death Plaza. Looming before him were fully armored knights of levels 37 and 38, and a formidable skeleton lord whose level was unknown. The sudden slamming shut of the gate behind him sent a shiver of fear down his spine. Hadn't the ultimate adversary been rumored to lurk on the third floor? In frustration, he recognized the system's sly trick. Not only had the subterranean creatures been modified, but the dungeon's denizens had been reshuffled too. It was no longer the labyrinth he had created. One of the knights brandished its sword. He retaliated in kind, but found himself only able to divert the blow. The force was too much for him, compelling him to strike back at the knight, only to discover that his attack did nothing. The knight's invincibility left him stunned. He activated his hunt mark, but a system alert notified him that there were no vulnerabilities to exploit. The knights, he realized, were adorned in netherweave armor, a prized creation of the elf tribe. When a knight lunged, he tried to parry, but the raw power behind the strike surpassed the skeletal foes he had previously defeated. Unable to fend off the blow, he was thrown back, a searing pain radiating from his abdomen that left him coughing up blood. Surveying the undead adversaries before him, he found his mind wandering to the ill-fated inebriate whose journey had tragically ended here. The armored knight marched forward, halting mere steps away, prompting him to ponder the grim prospect of his life ending in this ominous dungeon. He mused over the perils and life-threatening risks inherent in navigating such dark labyrinths. Undeterred, the knight charged, launching an unyielding attack. As he collapsed, he could feel the rhythm of his heartbeat fading into oblivion. He was so drained that even the act of standing seemed Herculean. His mind churned with the fear that his journey may have reached its final chapter. He visualized the faces of Ma and Meng Meng, offering them a silent apology. The abrupt beep from his monitor confirmed his worst fears. His primary heart had failed in response. His demonic secondary heart was triggered into action. The demon heart was now active. He found himself lying on the icy floor, the knight's discerning eyes upon him. As one was about to strike the mortal blow with his sword, he opened his eyes abruptly and leaped up onto his feet. His fist landed on the knight's stomach before the sword had a chance to strike. His teasing ringing throughout the room at their sluggish reflexes, the knight staggered back, bumping into the others and sending parts of their faces flying. His scream told him that with every pulse of the demon heart, all his stats were given a 50 increase. Fear was no longer included in his emotional repertoire. His power increased to 72, speed to 53, body to 21, intelligence to 19, and perception to 20. With newfound power and lightness, he knew that the demon heart's boost would be his tool against the berserker knights. If a knight attacked him, he dodged and crushed the face of the knight into the earth with ease. But he was confused when the knight did not move. Rubbing its head ascertained that it was defeated, and he wondered why his experience points were not increasing. His epiphany hit him. The armored knights could not be defeated. Baldur's cursed sword was useless against them, because they were not death spirits, but simply marionettes of the boss. Looking at his inventory, he realized that the instant when he had entered this dungeon, he had been fighting the boss with a quick stroke. He drew out his vibrometal longsword, charged a knight, and cleaved him in half. His confidence surged as he looked around at the defeated knights. He sliced through a skeleton's neck, thrust another's chest, and shattered the rest with a deadly stomp. After a fierce battle, the last of the skeletal knights fell. He focused his attention on the massive skeleton boss. When he looked up, he was shocked by its single-minded attention directed towards him. The tension was palpable as it unsheathed its sword and swung in a wide arc. Though the attack whizzed past him, he sensed the yawning power gap between them. He stood there in amazement, wondering if he really was in a crank dungeon. He knew that the boss had deliberately biased its attack. A direct shot would have sealed his fate. In spite of the demon heart and undead bell, his instinct compelled him to go slowly against this powerful opponent. The boss seemed to agree with him, wondering if he was indeed human. A flash of a question snapped him out of his daydream, a harsh reminder of the goddess curse, and his triumph over Zhang that gave him newer experience. He responded by confirming that he was no longer human. The boss made a shocking statement subsequently: if he was no longer human, killing him would not be necessary. His mind struggled with confusion as he tried to decipher the motives of the boss. He told him of a familiar energy it sensed from his being, and asked him to show him his inventory as he sifted through various items. He wondered if any resonated with the boss claims. Even the momentary distraction of a magazine only briefly diverted the boss' focus. The boss restated its sensing of something emanating from him. His hands closed around a necklace, and he presented it to the boss. Shock lit up the boss' face as it cried that the century-long search was over. The object, the skyline tree's key, was a sacred relic of mythical level, protected by the elf tribe for generations without number. Its energy was overwhelming, able to command the skyline tree, create an impenetrable shield, and even induce the tree to bloom and produce fruit. The resulting fruits would explode when coming into contact with the ground, resulting in devastating damage. The discovery of the SSS rank item had him stunned. An underground dungeon that drops a legendary item was a huge glitch. He weighed whether the gamble with his life was worth it to reclaim it, knowing the powerful monster that stood between him and it. Just as he was struggling with these ideas, an interface appeared, recognizing the launch of the main mission, an appeal from Elf Prince Asif. The skyline tree was in danger from a malicious energy. In the midst of this unprecedented crisis, he was compelled to transfer the skyline tree key to Elf King MANHUA, giving the king the capability to prevent the impending disaster. The idea of the skeletal boss being Elf Prince Asif started making sense, particularly with the knight's elf armor. But his first priority was to get the key back. He would think about his next steps later, but for the time being, he decided to go to the royal palace in Skyline City on Harvest Day, a holiest of holidays for the elf tribe. In the meanwhile, during the celebration, the elf Prince Asif was unaware that an intruder was reading the royal relics and, in the end, stealing the key of the skyline tree. With the loss of the key, the tree's protective shield disappeared, causing strife between the dark elves and the forest elves. The elves blamed Asif for the disaster and revoked his royal rank, banishing him from the skyline tree. Unfazed, overthrown Asif set out to reclaim the pilfered key. His quest was plagued by an ambush in the mist forest, which was fatal to all parties involved. Asif's soul was taken over by a dark entity after the tragedy. When he woke up, he found that he had become the lord of the burial dungeon, a prisoner within his own kingdom. 20 years ago, a human appeared. Asif had no intention of killing him, but the dark power within himself left him with no option. Shock-stricken by the discovery of an evil energy, Wu struggled with the question of his own humanness, a problem Asif had started. He hadn't planned on this sinister energy in his game development, so its presence was a mystery. Undeterred, Wu revealed his virtuous goal to Asif and sought Lasso's tears. In an unexpected twist, Asif admitted to having had this treasured object at some point, but outside of Manhwa while he was in long captivity, he had drunk it. Shocked at this discovery, Wu realized that he was no match for Asif, but a fanciful idea came to him. Cooking Asif into soup. Asif's unexpected arrival of a ring calmed Wu's anger, and he came to understand that Lasso's tears were not the only way of rescue. Asif elaborated that Lasso's tears, though powerful, had side effects, but perhaps the root ring would do better. This mythic ring, which was made from the root of the skyline tree by forest elves, granted the user a shield against every sickness. In disbelief, Wu was amazed by the precious relic. Asif, seeming relaxed, declared the ring's self-evident value. Elated, Wu declared that the ring exceeded Lasso's tears in value. Asif consented to leave the ring to Wu, but a mission lay ahead for Wu in return. Asif desired emancipation. Loyalty followers of his condemned status were bound and needed release by the undead bell. Wu, conflicted, opined that ringing the bell could destroy the souls forever. Undeterred, Asif accepted this as an option, conceding their formerly lived lives. Reluctantly grasping the undead bell's utility, but saddened at applying such a precious artifact in these conditions, Wu gained the strength to ring it. The radiant light that burst forth encompassed the spirits, and with the light fading, so did they. As their prince said his farewell, Asif also gave his brother Dina farewell. His faithful spirits finally found peace. Leaving their dark dungeon isolation, Wu asked Asif why he survived eternally. As a ghost, Asif's cryptic answer meant his powerful resilience had eluded the sweep of the undead bell. Fearing his own isolation inside the dungeon if Asif stayed behind, Wu got an unexpected answer. Asif could simply create a transport gate, which he did with ease. With a final request, Asif gave Wu a letter to be given to his father if they ever crossed paths. Getting onto the transport gate, Wu slowly disappeared, leaving Asif alone enjoying his solitude. Asif created a concealed book, a scandalous magazine. Enthusiastically thumbing through the pages, he regretted being cooped up, sad at the loss of the chance to wonder at the world's loveliness. Clearly greater than the palace elf maidens, Asif was so amused that he overlooked an important detail: the destination of the transport gate was a wild card. His lack of knowledge regarding Wu's point of landing raised the tension. Following the goddess martial artist's vanishing, dark elves broke through the humans' defensive line, signaling the beginning of a malevolent attack in an unprecedented chaos of war. An enormous eagle descended upon a besieged man who pleaded for the assistance of his captain. In the very nick of time, the captain, Li Zhongyun, a rugged man from the Goddess Martial Artists Guild's second attack team, came to the rescue. With a quick, powerful elbow, he knocked the eagle to the ground firm in the face of peril. Captain Li reached out to his friend, Zhang Hao, to give comfort amidst the mayhem. Taking Li's hand, Hao relayed the somber news of their comrade's death, Lu Xing, and Zhang Zi. Despair oozed through his words as he reflected on the hopelessness of a war that was waged against enemies that hid unseen. Commanding gigantic puppets in spite of the hopeless prospect, Li highlighted their duty to maintain humanity's shield until their masters come back. Hao, with tracks of tears on his face, reminded them of their leader's extended absence and the insidious fear that was taking hold. In a desperate foretelling, he spoke out against the fear that their demise was certain without their commander. Suddenly, one red petal floated into sight, then a flurry of identical ones. Baffled, Li followed their trajectory back to the massive skyline tree. Just as a dark elf sounded a retreat with the retreating foe, human soldiers were left stunned and bewildered behind. Hao, an animated figure, declared the elven withdrawal to Li with joy in their unforeseen reprieve. Li was perplexed by this tactical withdrawal, given the evident superiority of the elves. Then, instantaneously, the flowers of the tree ripened into fruit that split and dropped. One fruit rolled up to Hao, and in curiosity he grasped it. Foreseeing danger close at hand, Li cried out, but it came too late. The fruit was a malevolent red. Just in time, Hao threw it aside. The fruit blew up and created a huge crater. As the other fruits continued to burn in an explosion chain reaction, panic-stricken Hao shouted out with rage, placing blame on the fleeing elves. At the same time, in a desolate land called the Dead Country, a transportation gate appeared, and from it a careful person named Wu stepped out. Faced with the sight of fog, giant tree roots, and looming buildings dangling from these roots, Wu was stunned. Seeing this strange scenery, he wondered if he was inside the skyline tree or in the elf tribe's sacred land. The jarring wake-up call shook him to his core. He was inside the Dead Country, a 20-player party-level high-difficulty dungeon. He swore at the skeleton Osset for transporting him to such a destination. His focus shifted towards the suspended structures, and to his shock, one started to move. While the enclosure disintegrated, Wu stood face-to-face with a powerful level 51 Death Elf fighter. While the horror monster shambled towards him, its body unnaturally changed, forming its limb into a deadly weapon. Rising up with otherworldly speed, it attacked him. Though he was able to parry its attack, he shook with fear, perceiving the cavernous difference between their powers. Calling upon his title of Wolf Hunter, he deployed his hunt mark, multiplying his attacking strength by a paltry 7 with a boost of adrenaline. He counterattacked only to find that this monster was dead, with no apparent weak point. It was when he saw the red line running along its spine. As it bit at him, he realized that his only hope for winning was cutting this red lifeline. With a powerful sword stroke, he drove the creature off and sprang behind it, cutting the red line. As if a puppet cut loose from strings, the beast dropped, and he was rewarded with a bonanza of experience points. Shocked by the experience bonanza, he saw the key to smooth triumphs. Discovering and taking advantage of vulnerabilities, his excitement was short-lived. However, as a grim realization set in. The crypt of the Fallen Kingdom was famous for its time limit, a location where the living shouldn't disturb the dead if he stayed for too long. He would be eternally cursed abruptly. An unsettling sound resonated from the root-suspended items that surrounded him. Spinning around, he saw them splitting open, disclosing additional death elves. The threat of a mass attack gave him the chill. He could hardly fight one, far less many. Panicked, he prayed to Asit for rescue. As the unaware deity was busy enjoying the bodily shapes exhibited in a magazine at an unexpected moment, he sneezed, astonishingly wondering if skeletons could bring relief. Eventually, the death elves were vanquished, leaving him exhausted and depleted, but his ordeals were yet to cease. His hands spasmodically jerked, attacking him. His heart thumped in terror as he understood that he was losing control of his body because of some cancerous virus. If this decay spread throughout his body, he would be confined, never to escape. In his desperation, he thought about the ring given by Asit. With his prankster hand suppressed, he decided the tree, being a branch of the skyline tree, had the ability to withstand this corruption. As he placed the ring on his errant hand, the virus vanished. Gazing at his hand with relief and frustration, he questioned if the troublemaking skeleton prince intentionally led him into this trap. Yet his troubles were relentless. The dangling objects on the tree tumbled once again, and a new horde of death elves emerged. Before he could prepare himself, holding fast to his demonic shape for a counterattack, a blinding pink light scorched the elves. Dumbstruck, he saw the light incinerate the elves. He was fascinated by this potent light. Intrigue looked around its enigmatic origin. A figure appeared out of the light in the shape of a martial arts goddess. The legendary goddess. His heart raced in gratitude, though wonder crept into it. Why was she here rather than fighting on the battlefield? The enigma grew thicker when the goddess positioned herself in a fighting stance, with him as her target. Startled, he threw his hands up in dismay, his mind whirling to comprehend her aggressive stance. In a sadistic twist of fate, he understood the implications of his demon form to the goddess. He was not a friend but an enemy. Defending himself against the previous undead was one thing, but fighting the goddess, that was playing with fire and offering himself to death. She stayed on her guard, observing him, until her sword eventually eased. A peculiar familiarity danced in her eyes as she gazed at the demon, a sense of familiarity obscuring her mind. She felt a connection to this demon, to Wu somehow. At the same time, in the Cold Player Management Association structure, Bingyun read out a dark report to lay the explosion recently had come with a shocking cost to their players. The Goddess Martial Artist Guild lost an astounding 166 members, and another 280 had their combat spirits extinguished. The Lightning Dragon Guild also lost 5 lives and experienced the morale of 102 members being broken. The Green Sheep Guild lost 30 people and 72 members who lost the will to fight. The Yuntang Guild was smaller but also tallied 13 fatalities and 51 warriors without spirit. They'd lost the front line, and survivors had taken shelter in the small Dairen village within the Great Rift Valley. Bingyun relayed the somber forecast: if the skyline tree continued to explode, Dairen's village would be under threat in 2 days. Half a month from now, city would be in the range of annihilation. 1 month from now, the whole region within 500 meters of the skyline tree would be in a sea of fire. With this horrifying news, Lei nervously tapped his fingers on the table, asking the bigwigs' backup plans. The order from on high was straightforward, if formidable. Do all they can to stop the explosion. If they failed, an evacuation of city would be unavoidable. Lei stood suddenly, his thoughts running wild with the burden of their predicament. As he exited, he inquired of Bingyun as to any news regarding the goddess martial artist. Only to be greeted by silence, he ordered Bingyun to tell all players of their last desperate scheme to attack the skyline tree, whether or not they had the goddess help. At the same time, in the devastated country, the goddess leaned against Wu with an unusual behavior, making him suspect whether she had acquired a taste for demons. She demanded food from him, showing she had been famished for over half a month. His transformation skill ran out at that point, and his demonic body slowly dissipated. The goddess, confused, questioned his transformation to a human. His reply came stutteringly, as he fought to express the paradoxical nature of his life. Formerly a human, cursed by the goddess, he had become a demon. Would she take him seriously? She sniffed him once more, saying her nose was particularly sensitive. She told him that he had not been born human. He pushed her away gently, asking if hunger had made her go mad. Wu was surprised that she questioned his humanity. Digging into his pack, he offered her a piece of bread as a peace offering. The goddess, not even pausing, swallowed the entire thing and left Wu surprised and a bit annoyed with her voracious appetite. Watching her, he began to assemble her guileless naivete and wondered at her background as a martial artist. Unexpectedly, she confessed her own uncertainty regarding her heavenly martial change. 6 months ago, when the world of the game had crashed onto Earth, she was promoted to her current position, news that rocked Wu. Automatically, he put his hand over his mouth, then hesitated, confused as to how Shed read his silent mind, casually waving him off. She cautioned him not to think too much. She possessed a special passive ability, a mental radar which allowed her to hear thoughts within a 5-meter radius of herself. In spite of his previous criticism, she sensed no ill will from him. Wu immediately put space between them, taking care not to reveal his true identity as the creator of the game. His life depended on it. The goddess, holding her shield, asked Wu how they got out of this situation. Shed fought the undead elves for more than a month, using physical attacks, fire, burial, even spells, but they just wouldn't die. Wu, seeing how lacking in tactical sophistication she was, pictured himself using her fighting abilities to better defend himself and leave the dungeon. He told her they were in the land of the dead, fighting undead enemies, which was why they were so hard to kill. To survive, they would have to kill the boss of the dungeon. When she inquired about the whereabouts of the boss, showing that she had never once seen it in all her time there, Wu gestured skyward, suggesting that the boss dwelled at the top. When he revealed this to her, she immediately prepared herself to climb. Wu attempted to interrupt, to clearly say what his intention was, but she was already flying, spear ready for combat. Sadly, her climb ended in a rude crash back down to the ground. In spite of the fall's effect on her, she confessed her failure to defeat the boss. Wu further disclosed that they were stuck inside a difficulty-ranked dungeon, the most challenging to overcome, and that even her goddess martial artist status would not secure a win. A heavy thud cracked the ground out of nowhere. When Wu turned around, he was faced with a colossal elf, the foreboding Nodo Orad, a level 90 monster with enormous stats and owner of the mythical Arda twin swords. This individual was once a chivalrous elf king, but has been corrupted and deformed into a guardian of the dead world. The sight of such a powerful boss made Wu shiver. With the goddess holding only the elf saint's sword, the prospects of them winning seemed dismal. Wu couldn't help but question the former elf king's metamorphosis and the ruinous changes his once peaceful game environments. The tainted king then lifted a twisted hand, causing Wu and the goddess to cower in anticipation. It instead pointed an accusatory finger at Wu, calling him a thief. Looking at him in confusion, Wu pointed toward himself. At the same moment when a digital prompt appeared in front of him, the interface asked him if he wanted to pass the key of the skyline tree to the elf king Nodo Orad. Holding the key out, Wu asked if the object Orad had been searching for. Orad accepted the key, questioning Wu about the source of a certain necklace. Wu told him it was a shipment left to his care by Orad's own son, Usit, and he handed over a letter that further clarified the circumstances. In another scene, in the middle of the smoldering debris of the front line, a transport gate appeared out of nowhere. Wu and the goddess came out, and he was amazed at the sight of the blooming skyline tree. He reflected on what this meant, the tree flourishing when he held its key. As Wu struggled with this enigma, the goddess set her sights on Li, fallen on the battlefield. She attempted to heal him, but the digital overlay informed her that his health was at a critically low level and that any healing magic would be ineffective. Li, frail but relieved by her return, cautioned her of his approaching death and implored her to save her strength. He asked her to save Captain Thunder Armadillo and the rest of their friends. At the skyline tree, Wu signaled to the goddess the gravity of their position. He told her that in the absence of the key, the skyline tree would be invincible, no matter what they did seizing his hand. She dragged him up and warned him to hold fast. She was going to make a lightning-fast run. Wu's first bewilderment gave place in an instant to understanding as he experienced his soul being torn almost from his body in reaction to the goddess' phenomenal velocity. Meanwhile, inside the royal palace of the skyline tree, the players nervously watched the shield, behind which the evil dark elves sneered. Li, otherwise referred to as Thunder Armadillo, was a regular mercenary prior to the time the game world and the real world merged. Graced with the lightning god's power, he employed this ability to dominate other factions. Being the prime hound of the player union of City, Li punched the shield with his dragon fist, only to result in a tiny fissure. Yuntang clan's leader, Jiang Kai, attempted his own assault on the seemingly impenetrable shield. Enraged, he blamed the Dark Elves for being cowards, berating them for using a shield they themselves were not able to penetrate. Dark Elf King Noto Luca, an ADS-ranked character with an ice blizzard sword, was the deceased brother of Elf King Noto Orod. Luca, following a path of evil, became a dark elf. Mocking the human players, he taunted them that without the key to the skyline tree, they could not do anything but stand by as the skyline trees destroyed their world. Jiang courageously challenged a fair duel to Luca, who shooed away the offer, asserting that a mere mortal was not worth his notice. Furious, Jiang hurled word daggers at Luca but was interrupted by an untimely arrival. The goddess, accompanied by a clearly panting Wu, brought her run to an end as the relieved players questioned who the weak figure she was holding was. One of them identified him as Wu, the rabbit hunter. To the surprise of all of them, it turned out that Wu had met his match in the goddess, who had deemed it appropriate to rescue him. Lei was impressed by the tenacity of Wu, wondering when he had allied himself with the divine being. Wu quietly vowed to himself that he would not be carried on the spot by the goddess anymore. He had been left feeling like his nerves were stretched to their breaking points. Sighting the goddess, Jiang opened his arms in a hearty welcome, asking her to use her spear and break the surrounding barrier. Luca expressed his skepticism at her escape from the realm of the dead, in disbelief that she must have overcome the Elf King. Having spotted the key to the skyline trees draped casually around Wu's neck, Luca's eyes narrowed in shock. Wu drew his sword, and whispers coursed through the throngs. They were starting to suspect that his motives were not so benevolent. They could not understand why Wu, the rabbit hunter, would be brave enough to defy an obstacle that even the mighty Thunder Lei would be unable to destroy. When he spotted the key, Luca quickly commanded the Dark Elves to apprehend Wu. Before they had time to respond though, their comrades, enraged and seeking revenge, came to Wu's defense and attacked the elves. They were not about to let these cowardly elves get away with what they had done to their brothers. Moments later, Wu stood in the royal court, inside the Holy Saint Relic Hall. He placed the necklace in its previous position, and the interface appeared in front of him after confirming his identity. It told him the skyline tree was functioning and asked whether he wanted to shut it down. With no delay, Wu selected yes, even after a warning that it could be completely destroyed. When asked again, Wu did not waver from his choice. The radiance of the skyline tree drew a scene of wonder on the city roads. The petals glowed with an extreme brilliance that citizens couldn't help but ask about their magical origin. A woman and her daughter, particularly mesmerized by the scene, wished that they could create a wreath using the magical petals for the girl's father, Li Shangyun, commander of the 2nd Attack Squad. Meanwhile, Ma was taking good care of Meng. 2 weeks had already lapsed since Wu had left, and Meng stared out of the window with worry carved on her face. Questioning his safety, the tree in the skyline was blossoming at its fullest, but upon shedding the petals, it remained bare, although the sight was still unmistakably grand. Meanwhile, Zhang, Lei, and the goddess maintained their gaze focused on Luca, with the goddess attempting to breach Luca's shield with her spear. Lei came in to aid the attack with his lightning dragon fist. Luca laughed at their efforts, claiming that even though they had been blessed with the power of the thunder god, Lei was still only human and could not possibly utilize the full strength of the deity. In a shocking revelation, however, Lei was able to penetrate his shield as his strength waned. His fear took over. He could not understand why Wu controlled the skyline tree. His defensive barriers started to break apart gradually, and in disbelief he screamed out in denial. Taking advantage of the moment, the goddess attacked Luca with her spear, even as he still dismissed his situation when the massive tree's branches broke apart. Crashing down in a din of splintering wood, the players watched in stunned silence. The ground that was under them started cracking and breaking up, sending a quick order to withdraw surging through their lines. Word spread rapidly that the massive skyline tree had toppled, declaring a decisive victory for humanity. This time around, in the bleak aftermath, at the sacred site of city's player cemetery, individuals came to mourn their fallen heroes. The goddess, along with other leaders, placed scented flowers respectfully on the graves of the dead, while their grieving families mourned their courageous kin on this sad day of 2032. Chivalrous heroes were lost to the tragedy of the skyline tree. Their courageous battle for humanity would forever remain inscribed in the pages of history. In another hospital room, a nurse gasped when she observed Meng stirring, her eyes passing by the flashing lights outside. She immediately reported to the director that Room 2's VIP patient had come out of her magic element syndrome. Wu arrived to find Meng looking pale but awake and admitted she was famished. Elated with delight, Wu happily promised to bring her a hamburger and fried chicken. This caused Ma to sternly rebuke him for proposing unhealthy food to the just-recovered Meng. The room dropped suddenly silent as the goddess was shocked to realize that Wu had a child. A wave of sadness enveloped her. Then a burst of heavenly blue light emanated from her body to meet a corresponding glow on Meng's forehead. To the surprise of all, an unknown woman emerged from Meng's corpse. When Ma blamed Wu for this, the woman struck back, and Ma fell to the ground. The mysterious woman then ordered the goddess to appear in the room. After she entered the room, the woman identified herself to Wu, putting him into confusion. She admitted to losing her divine abilities in a previous battle, but hadn't expected to discover them in the goddess. Wu, connecting the dots, inquired whether she was the goddess martial artist. She conceded as much but explained without her divine abilities, she wasn't a god. His next inquiry regarding whether she was there to recover her powers was received in silence. She leaned forward instead, whispering darkly that the game had begun again and winning was survival, by whatever means necessary. Then, without warning, she kissed Wu on the cheek and disappeared, leaving Meng and the goddess staring around in numb shock. Meng wondered whose the lovely woman sitting next to him was, making the goddess blush in puzzlement and surprise at finding herself there. At the same time, in the farthest recesses of the inland, a dreadful monster dug its way out of the ground and into the air as it let out a terrifying howl. A pop-up message appeared, stating that the level of the player had been unlocked. The game was back on. Indeed, the top player of the game now had a staggering level of 90. In the far reaches of a dungeon, a man was stumped as to why there were no usual monstrous beasts and the leader monster, the boss. He told his co-adventurers about the uncannily silent dungeon, free of its usual horror. Yun Kong added with what he'd learned from the player forum. The skyline tree had just collapsed, and the dungeon no longer spawned the nightmare monsters. This drove Chen Xian, who had just spent more than $1 million on new equipment after getting a player loan, into frantic fear of his impending debt. With monster fighting out of the question now, China Street in bustling a city, a famous player trade hub, was a ghost town. Out-of-work players were selling their equipment at bargain basement prices. The city was rocked by a huge explosion. Shops were ransacked by thugs, but the erstwhile fearless adventurers watched on, passively observing the chaos that was unfolding. In this chaos, a man inquired of his friend whether there had been many recent robberies. His friend responded grimly that if the association did not sort things out immediately, a city would become a haven for criminals. The debate on this disaster was playing out at a critical session in the Player Association's high-rise building. In the meantime, the goddess was wrestling with a combination of shame and fascination. She had slept in last in Wu's infirmary and was now musing about her emotions towards him and how to broach a conversation. In the other corner of the room, Zhang Yunhan, the head of the Green Sheep Guild, complained about the state of the association's decaying conditions and blamed it on the presence of guests at the meeting as being disrespectful. Zhang Kai promptly rebuked him by reminding Yunhan that Wu had saved them from the climactic battle of the skyline tree. Nevertheless, Yunhan's arrogance prevailed. This caught the eye of a woman who opined that, if what Zhang had said was true, the city had been saved by an underdog. She introduced herself to Wu as Zucker, leader of the Chamber of Commerce, and assured him diamond membership rewards for any future transaction. Wu thanked her politely. This kind gesture to Wu baffled Zhang, who asked in surprise why they had only gotten gold memberships after all those years of toil. Kir gave a cheeky reply showing an apparent interest in Wu. This got on the goddess' nerves, who reminded Kir promptly about Wu's adopted daughter. Undeterred, Kir replied that she knew full well that Wu's daughter was adopted, and that Wu was technically unmarried. A third individual, Tyr, couldn't help but mock the goddess for her curious interest in Wu's personal life. Yunhan, indignant at the drama unfolding, called Wu a freeloader, earning glares from the goddess and Kir alike. Wu was, in the meantime, second-guessing coming here, an invitation to which Lei had given him only 2 days ago. Lei assuredly told the assembled players that they would enjoy the association's elite benefits, as well as a 50,000 stipend every month. Wu, with great relief, enjoyed the prospect of being released from the endless chase for monsters. Back in the snowy lands of Greenland, players bickered in heated arguments about the act of a jackalope. Life had become darker after the skyline tree's fall. Weapons lost all their value, and monsters were scarce and hard to find. Lei began the meeting by reassuring the people that they were prepared to start. Bingyun created a dramatic background by casting a video with an abundant number of powerful flying creatures and gargantuan monsters besieging players. Kir recognized the tumultuous battlefield as the nation's infamous deep abyss pithole. Bingyun confirmed her hunch, calculating the pit as far as the fallen skyline tree for the number of high-level monsters it brought in and decreeing it the new main battlefield. Players who were adventurous everywhere were flocking towards the pit in solidarity. Zhang, agitated and worried about what had happened to his guild, pleaded with the group to become involved. Yunhan made a jab at the association's slow response, announcing that an international player had already penetrated city a month ago. Bingyun fumed at the news, exchanging a strained look with Yunhan. Caught in the middle of it all was Zhang. While Zhang sensed Yunhan's taunting intention, a month earlier, in the command center of County's Abyss Pithole, Chi Yunjun, leader of the Country Player Association, gloomily revealed to them that they had lost 3 cities. He noted that country's players were now on the highest levels and asked why they had not asked for their assistance. A country minister and disaster officer Wangxiangli encountered, giving as their reasons for not including country their top-grade position and better equipment. Their strong players would dominate the gains from the Abyss Pithole. He did yield, however, and said if they shared the booty of the skyline tree, an invite could be sent. Raid Smith of Country's Player Association had no doubt that they would see through the deep abyss, with their powerful tiger and white bear guilds on the way to assist. Shiro Yusuker, leader of their own association, affirmatively confirmed that their Dark Ninja and White Ghost guilds were on the way. The delegates from every nation showed their appreciation, vowing fair compensation upon the passage of the crisis in spite of the solidarity. Yunjin admonished their actions, terming their actions against the citizens a mockery. He cautioned them against the regret they would have for not engaging country. He also advised Yunjin of his role, highlighting his authority to withdraw Yunjin's status as a clan leader. Yunjin, surprised by the announcement, suddenly left the gathering. While inside the City Player Association building, Bingyun revealed that their team had made contact with County over 3 times for talks. The enemy had successfully claimed the skies, looting a vast collection of wealth and items. Their entry fee to their island was high, half of the plundered spoils. The temerity of this request ignited fury in Zhang. The agony of the sacrifices they had made to obtain these things raw and new. Zhang was demanding explanations from Lei, challenging their summons and asking for an end to this standoff. Lei, the center of serenity amidst this tempest, assured Zhang soothingly, saying that their meeting had more to say, that a resolution was nigh. Lei then summoned Bingyun to reveal the truth. Bingyun, in turn, played a series of frightening videos. The eerie pictures depicted the Black Dragon, Kabata, the deep abyss, destroying, leveling entire cities. People were running in terror, losing friends and loved ones, left behind in ruins. The would-be heroes, the players, were running away in fear. monsters rampaged over defenseless citizens, and the players, who were supposed to be their rescuers, froze in fright. The scale of devastation caused by the dragon aghast the leaders, likening it to a traveling doomsday gadget. Zhang, upon being informed that the atrocities had happened just 1 day ago, looked shocked. The second blast from the bottomless pit was so massive compared to anything they had encountered before. The repercussions of this eruption were apocalyptic. 3 cities were erased from existence, 8 high-ranking guilds destroyed, more than 6,000 players demoralized to the point of defeat, and a massive 350,000 lives claimed. The room froze in a heavy silence at the news. Lei finally broke the silence, pointing out that the war remains very real in its aftermath, with every association having deep scars. He shared the frightening reality that if the situation was allowed to continue, every city would collapse completely within 3 months, with severe national implications. Lei then indicated a switch in the conversation, bringing in a special guest. The new guest was no other than Qi Yunjin, head of the Country Player Association. Zhang, seeing him, at once accused Yunjin of coming to them only after a thorough drubbing. Lei at once intervened, saying that Yunjin had been asking them for help for more than a month now. It was then declared that they had made up their minds to lend their power to Country, since the Goddess Martial Group had struck a deal and was organizing an expeditionary force. Yunjin respectfully begged them to assist in rescuing his native land, leaving the room to descend into a reflective quietness once more. Lei addressed Zhang, seeking a reply, considering his previous fiery displays. Zhang admitted that though he wished to assist after viewing the video, he was hesitant to endanger the lives of his friends unnecessarily. With tears running down his face, Yanzhang begged desperately for the rescue of his country. Standing up from his chair, Yun Han hurled pointed questions at Yunjin, questioning his conduct during the tragedy. There was a cloud of indifference that settled around him as he proclaimed the meeting useless and his indifference to Yunjin's nation before walking out. Tier 2 left, but not without issuing a subtle threat to the goddess. In case she failed, Wu would be ready to take the reins down the road on a barren highway. Junhan questioned a strange man on the case at hand, asking if there were any leads. The stranger handed him a document with surprises. They had leads, he explained, even naming the probable suspect for Brother Zhang's untimely demise. The surprise was one Yunhan could not get over, seeing the face in the photo. It prompted the man to inquire if Yunhan was familiar with this individual, and Yunhan owned up to having met him at a gathering. The man's investigation had revealed more than a name. It was a complicated story. The man informed Yunhan that this individual was named Zhuang Wu just 3 months ago. Wu was an inexperienced rookie in this world. Nonetheless, he had gained an unusual title. The rabbit hunter. He had been hunting only horned rabbits for half a year out of fear of death, which earned him the title. Upon a system notification, the behavior of the rabbit hunter transformed. He abandoned his rabbit hunting days, and more interestingly, he now belonged to a specific team. What was even more surprising was that Wu finished the Drunkard's Chain mission within 2 days and achieved the historical rank mission. This focused Zhang Tianyi's attention on him. By the time Tianyi arrived at Wu, though he was already deceased, was Wu a killer? Yunhan questioned the man. Once might be a coincidence, twice an accident, but the third time the man claimed was something more sinister. The man voiced his suspicion that Wu was connected with the mysterious raid god. The man presented a possible course of action. If they could access the raid god via Wu, their Green Lamb Guild would rise to become the strongest in city, even the world, within 6 months. But there was an obstacle: Wu's relationship as a friend to the goddess of the martial arts. Yunhan dismissed it, thinking they could break Wu into submission, erasing any possible interference. When the man inquired if Yunhan planned to use the relic, Yunhan answered harshly that he would not allow Wu, the murderer of his brother, to die too quickly. He would make Wu suffer a fate worse than death. At the same time, by himself in his flat, Wu crouched before his computer. He ruminated on game development. As Parite, the black dragon must guard its egg and never leave the bottomless abyss. But the capability he saw was much more than what he had conceived. Post the Skyline Tree's amateur mishap, he realized that the game had progressed beyond his initial design. With the appearance of an unfamiliar figure atop the powerful black dragon, Curiosity got the better of him. He engaged his hunter's mark and detected a power that perhaps overshadowed that of the dragon. His thoughts flashed back to the words of the mysterious lady, recalling the harsh reality of the game, where survival was winning. His mind wandered with the mystery that was this game of gods, and he caught himself thinking back on the elf king, heart full of gratitude. He accepted his freedom. He stared at his paper, submerged in befuddling thoughts. Was this his world created by him come to life, or had reality always contained this game? And if there were an original world, how would he know? And the foreboding power guiding the elf king, what on earth could that be? In his quiet contemplation, Meng served him a soothing cup of steep tea. His hand caressed Meng's hair, complimenting her goodness, when his eyes locked onto what she viewed outside their window. A power burst, enormous in magnitude, drew his attention to the interface. With haste, he swept up Meng into his arms and jumped out of the refuge of their apartment, safely landing but leaving Meng dazed. Yen Han was sure Wu was no easy target. He was certain of Wu's survival. Wu taunted Yen Han, asking him if he really knew what he was doing, if he feared the association's retribution. Yen Han replied, his apprehension of the society non-existent and his unrelenting determination to achieve his objective. The reference of Yun Han's younger brother incited Wu to draw a long sword, the master of which Yun Han recognized instantly. Incited to fury, Yun Han swore Wu's destruction. Throwing himself at Wu in assault, Wu activated his hunter's mark, his eyes outlining the focal points for a counter. His big sword clashed with Yun Han's in a defense. With a terrifying avowal, Yun Han vowed to be Wu's god, a thrill coursing through his veins. His thrill was brief because his sword broke against Wu's. Stunning him, a passerby warned Yun Han of the enigma that is Wu. Unfazed, Yun Han attacked Wu with his armory, confident that his opponent would fall, producing a new weapon. Yun Han resumed his onslaught. Wu taunted Yun Han's weak efforts with the martial goddess, and Yun Han responded with a hot-headed retort. A warning was issued to Yun Han of Wu's hidden secrets, advising him not to slay Wu. At the same time, the martial goddess felt a high-energy surge, attributing it to Zhuang Wu's abode. In another scene, Ding Yun informed Lei of Yun Han's assault on Zhuang Wu. Infuriated, Lei proclaimed the Green Lamb Guild out of date.